Chapter 458. To sign or not to sign made Su Qinghui struggle and struggle. He couldn't make such a choice in such a short time. He couldn't bear to let Su Peijian fall into such a situation. To Su Peijian that was worse than taking her life. But Li Qianxue, how could he bear to leave Li Qianxue? He knew Li Qianxue's personality too well. As long as he signed the contract, there would probably be no chance between the two of them. Thinking of how Li Qianxue looked when he saw her yesterday, Su Qinghui's heart was bleeding. He closed his eyes and said weakly, "Qianxue, do we really have to go this far? Su Qinghui, don't you think it's ridiculous for you to say this?" Li Qianxue almost laughed out of anger at Su Qinghui. "Don't you know what you've done? Do you really think that after you use such a vicious method to deal with me, I can still be with you as if nothing happened? Do you really think that after you let Peijian be my mother and daughter for more than 20 years, I will turn a blind eye? Will I be willing to acknowledge her as my biological daughter? If she had accidentally mistaken Su Peijian, she might have been willing to tolerate it. She would have continued to treat Su Peijian as her own daughter and raised her by her side. But what was the reality? The mother-daughter relationship between her and Su Peijian was orchestrated by Su Qinghui. How could she tolerate it? No matter how much Li Qianxue loved Su Peijian, it couldn't compare to the pain of being cheated and hurt. Especially when such deception and hurt came from the man she loved the most. She hated him as much as she loved him at the time. This hatred reached its peak when she thought of the grievances Su Qingsang had suffered for so many years, as well as the fact that she was almost sent to an orphanage when she was born. "Su Qinghui, let me tell you, I really want to drink your blood and eat your flesh. Don't think that I don't know about your dirty thoughts. Listen, I've written it clearly in the agreement, and I've given you everything I can. If you still want to push your luck or have other thoughts, I won't let you succeed." "Qianxue, I didn't. I'm not." Su Qinghui couldn't defend himself. He knew that he had lost his credibility in front of Li Qianxue. "I don't want to sign it because I don't want to divorce you. Qianxue, believe me, my feelings for you are sincere." "Believe that you are sincere to me? I believe that you didn't care about me for more than 20 years, and on the day of the divorce, you realized that you couldn't live without me?" When he said that, even Su Qinghui felt that it was ridiculous, not to mention Li Qianxue. But it was true. How could Li Qianxue believe him? She sneered. He snorted heavily. "Yes, I believe you. Do you think I'll believe you so that you won't leave so that I can get more benefits and fight for more benefits for Su Peijian?" Li Qianxue gritted her teeth. She had no idea that Su Qinghui could be so shameless. "I don't want to waste time with you. I want to see your signature before tonight. Otherwise we'll just wait and see." After hanging up the phone, Li Qianxue still felt very angry. He patted his chest with all his might, suppressing his anger. But it was very difficult. If it weren't for her strong personality, she would have cried at this moment. Li Qianxue, look at you. You were really blind back then. What kind of man did you like?" She had thought that even if Su Qinghui's family background was ordinary, he wouldn't love her. But in the end he had some pride and backbone. Now it seemed that he didn't have any backbone or pride. For the sake of a little property, he could even tell such a shameless lie as if it were true. No, perhaps he had pride and backbone in the beginning. However, these 20 years of living a comfortable life made his life more and more smooth, and he became more and more spineless. "Su Qinghui, you bastard. You plotted against me like this. I won't let this go." Li Qianxue's eyes were red. She really couldn't swallow the anger in her heart. She thought that she had originally planned to save some face for Su Qinghui. Since he was so shameless, why should she have any scruples? She took out her phone and was about to make a call. Before she could press the number, Su Qingsang knocked on the door and came in. "Mom?" Seeing her daughter, Li Qianxue put down her phone. "You're back." Su Qingsang had gone to Hua Jinyao's villa to get the gifts she had chosen before. Li Qianxue was naturally prepared. However, those gifts were given by her, and her daughter's gifts were given by her daughter. The person who prepared them was different, so the intention was naturally different. "Are you tired? I asked you to bring Yusin with you, but you didn't listen." "Mom, Yusin was going to school today to report. Why did I ask him to follow me? There aren't many things anyway. You even asked Xiaoyu and Uncle Zhang to help me. How can I be tired?" After Su Qingsang finished speaking, she noticed that her mother's eyes were a little red. "Mom, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" "I'm fine." Li Qianxue was also dizzy from anger just now. Now that she saw her daughter, she calmed down. No matter how unbearable Su Qinghui was, he was still Qianxue and Yusin's biological father. If his reputation was ruined, Qianxue and Yusin wouldn't be able to raise their heads in Lin City in the future. Moreover, Su Qingsang married into a family like the Huo family. That kind of family valued reputation the most. Forget it. In any case, she was the one who owed that enemy. He could only endure this anger for now. In the end, it was hard for him to calm down, and he couldn't help but show some emotions on his face. Su Qingsang had been through a lot and was no longer the innocent girl she used to be. Thinking about it, the only thing that could give Li Qianxue a headache was Su Qinghui or Su Peijian. Su Peijian had made a scene yesterday, so her mother probably didn't like her first. As for Su Qinghui, there was only one possibility. He refused to sign the divorce papers. Thinking of the look in Su Qinghui's eyes yesterday, Su Qingsang had mixed feelings. After thinking for a moment, she sat down next to Li Qianxue. I've asked Hu Jinyao about it. He had a villa and an apartment in Rong City. The environment was not bad and there was more than one place. We'll go there tomorrow. Do you prefer to live in an apartment or a villa? Don't bother him. Li Qianxue patted her hand. We can just stay in a hotel. I'm accompanying you to your home visit. Speaking of which, this is the first time the in-laws are visiting your home. If we live in each other's house, although it's reasonable, it's inevitable that we'll be inferior. Mom, are you going to stay in a hotel? You silly child. Li Qianxue looked at her daughter. No matter how much she doted on her, she couldn't make it up to her enough. When you said that you were leaving, I asked someone to inquire about it. Just buy a house near the Huo family. Even if the Li family can't compare to the Huo family, we still have some money. Mom? Su Qingsang couldn't stand it. Why did these people like to buy houses so easily? You don't have to be so wasteful, do you? How is it wasteful? Li Qianxue held her hand. When you marry over there, no matter how much Hu Jinyao gives you, it will still belong to their family. Women have to be strong and have money so they won't be looked down upon. It's one thing to be able to stand on your own, but it's another thing to be treated by your family. I'm not only going to buy one house, I'm going to buy a few more. When the time comes, they'll all be under your name. Mom? Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. When I was in the Huo family, old Master Hu gave me a villa. You're giving me another house. Why do I need so many houses? You little girl who would complain about having more properties under their name. So what if you have more houses? When the time comes, you can choose which one you like. If you don't like any of them, it doesn't matter. You can just rent them out and collect rent. Seeing Su Qingsang's refusal, she felt very emotional in her heart. All these years, her daughter had lost so many things and suffered so much. Looking at the children of other families in Lin City, which one of them didn't have more than a dozen properties under their name. She was the only daughter who didn't have anything from her family since she was a child. Thinking of this, Li Qianxue began to feel bad again. Don't refuse. You see, when you got married, I didn't even prepare a dowry for you. Although this matter is already over. But Mom really feels bad. Don't bother about these worldly possessions with me. Su Qingsang wanted to say something, but Li Qianxue squeezed her palm hard. Qingsang, Mom has to say something unpleasant. It's naturally good that you like Hu Jinyao's good relationship now. But I've seen through this man. There are very few men like your grandfather in the world. Flowers don't bloom for 100 days and people don't have 100 days of happiness. You have your own business in Rong City. What if Hu Jinyao has any ill intentions in the future? You also have a place to retreat. Although it's convenient to return to Lin City. I won't let his family bully you. But after all, it's more than 2 hours by plane. Just accept it as a way to calm Mom's heart, okay? Since she said that, Su Qingsang couldn't say anything more. After thinking about it, she couldn't help but defend Hu Jinyao. Hu Jinyao isn't that kind of person. Mom, don't worry. It's good that he isn't. Li Qianxue thought of her father. I hope he can always be good. I also hope that you and your husband can be happy. After all, it's too hard to find a man like your grandfather in this world. Li Qianxue's mother had hurt her body when she gave birth to Li Qianxue and had never recovered. She was ill for a few years and passed away early. After she passed away, old Master Li didn't trust anyone else to take care of his daughter. Secondly, he couldn't forget his wife, so he never remarried. If it weren't for this, Li Qianxue wouldn't have been spoiled by old Master Li, so she didn't have much scruples at all. That was why she plunged headfirst into Su Qinghui's demon barrier and couldn't get out. Let's not talk about the past. Now, Li Qianxue just wanted Su Qingsang to live a happy life. Mom, I know. Su Qingsang had only been back for a few days, but Li Qianxue had been thinking about everything for her. People's hearts were made of flesh. Su Qingsang wrapped her arms around Li Qianxue's waist and hugged her like a daughter who really relied on her mother. Chapter 459. Xiang Kaiping was a good person. She hoped that Su Peijian could let go of her prejudice and get along well with her. Relationships were nurtured. Sincerity for sincerity, and they were mother and daughter. How could they continue to hate each other? Su Qingsang really hoped that Su Peijian could think it through and accept Xiang Kaiping. Otherwise, Xiang Caiping's life would be too pitiful. Su Peijian looked at the apartment building in front of her and narrowed her eyes slightly. She naturally knew this place. She had been to Su Qingsang's old apartment once. Xiang Kaiping, that old woman, lived there. She was her biological mother in name. Su Peijian sneered and touched her nose. A trace of disdain flashed in her eyes. How could someone like Xiang Kaiping compare to Li Qianxue? Not to mention her family background, just her temperament and appearance. Xiang Caiping's face was weather-beaten. She looked to be in her 50s and her face was full of wrinkles. But what about Li Qianxue? She had taken good care of herself. She looked to be in her early 30s. And the way she talked and did things she usually did. Even when Li Qianxue was angry, she would try her best to maintain her elegance. Xiang Kaiping, on the other hand, had dared to hit her. The two of them could not be compared at all. But now, such an old woman had become her biological mother. Su Peijian gritted her teeth. Thinking of that slap, a trace of hostility flashed in her eyes. She blinked her eyes and suppressed the hostility. The most dangerous place was the safest place. She knew that Su Qinghui was looking for her. He wanted to find her and let her meet Xiang Kaiping. She would never have thought that she would come right to her doorstep like this. Xiang Kaiping stayed in the apartment for the next 2 days. It wasn't that she had nowhere to go, but that she had been shocked and couldn't think of anywhere else to go. She had been listless for the past 2 days. She would eat when Xiao Ning and Xiao Yu called her. She didn't want to go downstairs, and she was even more unwilling to get up to do rehabilitation. It had only been 2 days, but she had become a lot less energetic. She couldn't understand how Su Qinghui, the sunny young man, had become such a person. Was it revenge? Was he crazy? She felt most sorry for her daughter. In her eyes, Su Qingsang was the best in the world. No matter what, she was better than Su Peijian. However, when she thought of this, she felt that Su Peijian was her own daughter after all. She couldn't continue thinking about it. She hated Su Qinghui from the bottom of her heart. If it weren't for him, how could her daughter have become like this? Annoyed, he decided not to go out and stayed at home every day. Xiao Yu and Xiao Ning were hired by Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao to take good care of Xiang Kaiping. However, seeing that she was in a bad mood and Su Qingsang didn't show up, he knew that something was wrong. Both of them became more careful, taking care of Xiang Kaiping even more. Xiang Kaiping, on the other hand, could not get over it. Her body had already recovered a lot. However, he did not want to do rehabilitation and did not want to go out. Previously he could still walk a few steps, but now he was completely sitting in a wheelchair. Other than normal physiological needs, he was unwilling to get up and move. This was actually not good for the recovery of the body. Yu Xiaoning was secretly anxious and also tried to call Su Qingsang, asking her to come and have a look. However, when Xiang Kaiping heard what they said, she exploded on the spot. After all, the two of them were outsiders. They did not understand what the mother and daughter were fighting about, so they did not say anything more. After a few days, Xiang Kaiping looked paler and more haggard than before. Yesterday was the Lantern Festival, but there was no festive atmosphere at home. Xiao Ning had a family, so she hurriedly returned home. In the end, she was worried that the old lady would not be able to get over it, so she came back early today. However, not long after lunch there was a knock on the door. At this time she did not know who would come. Xiao Yu got up and quickly went to open the door. The person standing outside the door was not someone Xiao Yu knew. She had never seen Su Peijian before, so naturally she did not know who she was. "Hello, who are you looking for?" The girl in front of her was very young, but her complexion was not very good, and her hair and clothes were a little messy. For a moment she did not know if the other party was here as a guest or for something else. Before Su Peijian entered the door, she deliberately stood outside the door downstairs for a while in the cold wind, and her hair was a little messy. After taking out the mirror to make sure that her complexion was very bad, she went upstairs. At this time, her pale complexion was not faked. It was really because of the wind. Her body was still very cold, and this kind of discomfort made her blame everything that happened to her today on Su Qingsang. Although she was angry in her heart, a pitiful smile appeared on her face. "Hello, I am looking for Xiang Kaiping." "You are looking for Auntie?" Xiao Yu took a step back. "Auntie just returned to her room after eating." "Who are you?" "It's okay, I will go in and find her myself." As she said this, Su Peijian directly walked past Xiao Yu and into the room. "Miss." Xiao Yu wanted to stop her, but he could not. He could only watch Su Peijian rush in. Miss, wait a moment. Let me tell Auntie. Before she could finish, Su Peijian had already searched room by room. She did not need to search too much. After all, the room was only so big. When she opened the second door, Su Peijian saw the old woman. She was sitting in a wheelchair. It seemed that she heard the noise and came out to see what was happening. When she saw Su Peijian, Xiang Kaiping was stunned for a moment. However, Su Peijian let out a cry and threw herself in front of Xiang Kaiping. Mom? Xiang Kaiping was stunned on the spot. She had been in a bad mood for the past 2 days. Whenever she thought of what Su Qinghui had done, her heart would be filled with hatred. She also regretted that such a good child like Qing Sang was not her own daughter. She also thought of Su Peijian's unruly and stubborn personality. All these things made her unable to muster up any interest in acknowledging Su Peijian. After all, there was a gap between the two of them. If she went to Su Peijian's door to acknowledge her, she was not sure if Su Peijian would accept her. After all, Su Peijian was a good young lady. If she acknowledged her, she would become an illegitimate daughter. With Su Peijian's personality, would she really be able to accept it? Although Xiang Kaiping was angry, she could see through this matter very clearly. After all, no matter how bad Su Peijian was, no matter how spoiled she was by Su Qinghui, she was still her child, her flesh and blood. After what happened with Su Qingsang until now, Su Peijian did not come to visit. She was already prepared that Su Peijian would not acknowledge her as her mother. Because of this, she became more and more depressed. Unexpectedly, Su Peijian came. She came so suddenly and she still looked like this. Looking at Su Peijian hugging her waist and crying, Xiang Kaiping could not react for a moment. When she met Little Yu's curious and surprised gaze, she glanced at her. Little Yu understood tacitly, retreated, and closed the door. Mom? Su Peijian cried out again. This time her tears were real. She was really crying. How could she not cry? She was originally the young lady of the Su family and the department manager of the Li Corporation. Apart from the time when Qiu Yanba broke off the engagement, her life had been smooth sailing. However, she never thought that life would take a 180-degree turn at such a time. Her grandfather and mother were not her, and neither was her home. The most important thing was that her mother did not want her anymore. She had been with Li Qianxue for more than 20 years. More than 20 years. Could it be that just because she wasn't her biological mother, those 20 years could be erased in one go? Su Peijian did not understand that Li Qianxue was venting her anger on Su Qinghui. She also did not know that her identity had not been revealed until now because Li Qianxue still cared about the mother-daughter relationship. Now she only felt that she was pitiful and that she had lost everything. She cried extremely miserably. Xiang Kaiping did not like Su Peijian at first. She had not even thought about whether to acknowledge her as her daughter. But no matter what, she was her own daughter, a flesh and blood that fell from her body. Seeing Su Peijian cry like this, Xiang Caiping's heart softened. She raised her hand, trembled a few times, and finally placed it on top of Su Peijian's head. It was a gentle caress. She did not speak. It was such a simple action. Su Peijian raised her head. Her face was originally exposed to the cold wind outside, and it was frozen pale. Now she was crying like a pear blossom in the rain, looking extremely pitiful. Xiang Caiping's heart softened. Don't cry. Mom? Su Peijian bit her lip and shrunk her neck a little timidly. You are not angry with me anymore? Angry? What was there to be angry about? Xiang Kaiping sighed. Let's forget about the past. It's fine as long as you are not angry with me. Su Peijian's tolerance was probably not as big as Su Qingsang's. When the time came, she was the one who abandoned her. She was afraid that she would hate her. Mom. Su Peijian shook her head. At this time she cried pitifully. I know that my behavior in the past was not good. I also know that because of what happened in the past, you have misunderstood me. Su Peijian's voice sounded hoarse. She sniffled and tried to calm herself down. But now I really know that I was wrong. Mom. I know that I was wrong. Please forgive me. Xiang Kaiping looked at her and did not know what else to say. All right. I said it's nothing. You can get up. After all, the weather was cold. She was afraid that her knees would not be able to bear it if she half knelt on the ground. I won't get up. Su Peijian's tears flowed even more fiercely. I also only know who is the real family after all these things. Mom. Now I have nothing left. Mom, your daughter, I am about to be forced to death. Xiang Caiping's heart tightened. She looked at Su Peijian and said, What did you say? Who forced you to die? Su Peijian lowered her head and cried even harder. She did not say a word. Xiang Kaiping was furious. She could not help but reach out to pull her. Don't cry. Quickly get up and talk. Speak properly. Who on earth forced you to die? Chapter 460. Yes, Li Qianxue. Su Peijian swallowed the word mother that was about to come out of her mouth and looked at Xiang Kaiping. Ever since she found out that I wasn't her child, she kicked me out. Not only that, but yesterday she invited a lot of relatives and friends, saying that she wanted to clear Su Qingsang's name. I asked her if I was still her daughter and she kicked me out. Mother, I have nothing. I'm an illegitimate daughter now. This couple had gone too far. Xiang Kaiping was furious. She held Su Peijian's hand. The anger from before was gone, leaving only heartache for Su Peijian. How could she do such a thing? You called her mother for more than 20 years. How could she? I called her mother for more than 20 years because we both thought that we were mother and daughter. But now her real daughter is back. There's no place for me. Xiang Kaiping knew this was true. In fact, a few days ago she also kicked Su Qingsang out because she recognized Li Qianxue. But now that it was Su Peijian's turn, she began to feel that Li Qianxue had gone too far. She already hated Li Qianxue for stealing her man. Now that she heard Li Qianxue treat Su Peijian like this, she hated her even more. Good girl. Don't cry. She doesn't recognize you, but I do. She kicked you out and we don't care. Mother? Su Peijian looked at Xiang Kaiping blankly, as if she didn't understand what she meant. I won't hide it from you. I've saved some money in the past years. Although I can't compare to the Li family and the Huo family. It's enough for us to spend. Don't worry. Follow me from now on. Mother. Su Peijian was about to cry again when she heard this. Xiang Caiping's heart softened when she heard her daughter crying so hard that her voice was hoarse. She sighed and said, All right, don't cry. You can follow me from now on. Don't worry. I won't let you suffer. Okay. Su Peijian nodded heavily and reached out to hold Xiang Caiping's hand. Mother, I finally understand. What gratitude for raising him up. That was all fake. Only blood kinship was real. From now on, I only have you as my mother and my only family member. Xiang Kaiping nodded. Suddenly she thought of Su Qinghui. Li Qianxue drove you out. Didn't your dad say anything? Mom? Su Peijian gritted her teeth, and the sadness on her face became even more obvious. Dad couldn't bear to leave the Li family. Besides, it was Grandpa who called the shots in the family. How could he leave me here without a care? All right. Very good indeed. Xiang Kaiping hated Su Qinghui to begin with. Hearing this, she hated him even more. I thought he was a man of integrity. He had no choice but to marry that woman. Now, it doesn't seem like it's because they have no other choice. I'm afraid they just can't bear to part with the glory and wealth. Su Peijian lowered her head and looked aggrieved. Dad didn't speak up for me yesterday. You just kept asking me to look for you. I begged him to beg Li Qianxue not to kick me out. But he refused. Originally, I had done so many wrong things before. I really don't have the face to look for you. But no matter what, we are mother and daughter. Besides, I want you to know what kind of person Dad is. So today I shamelessly came here. Mom, you won't be angry with me, will you? No. Xiang Kaiping only hated Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue now. With this hatred, she didn't even like the house in front of her. As for the second half of Su Peijian's speech, saying that she didn't want to be kicked out, she wasn't angry. After all, they had been together for more than 20 years. If she really didn't fight back when she was kicked out, she would be too soft-hearted. Now it was good. She recognized her position and cut ties with the Su family. Thinking about it, Xiang Kaiping almost instantly had an idea. Let's go. Peijian. Let's go now. Go. Go where? Leave this place, of course. Xiang Kaiping was also angry. Li Qianxue had treated her daughter like this. How could she still have the face to stay in Su Qingsang's house? This house belongs to Su Qingsang. We won't live in it. Let's go now. Su Peijian didn't object. Speaking of which, Dad bought me a house before. Why don't we stay there first? Her luggage was still there. What are we going to stay in your father's house? We won't stay there even if we stay in a hotel. Xiang Kaiping was really glad now. She was glad that she didn't have time to give all her property to Su Qingsang out of guilt. Otherwise, the mother and daughter would really be living on the streets now. Mom, staying in a hotel also costs money. My apartment is actually not small. I was kicked out yesterday, so I stayed there for a day. Xiang Kaiping already hated Li Qianxue for kicking her daughter out. Now, hearing that her daughter was even fussing about the cost of staying in a hotel, her heart was really hurt. She hated Su Qinghui even more. After all, Su Peijian was a child he had raised and doted on for so many years. She kicked her out just like that, without any consideration for her feelings. He treated you like that. Why should you stay in his house? Mom? Su Peijian really didn't want to stay in a hotel. Since my father gave that apartment, it is mine. It would be a waste not to take it. Xiang Kaiping thought about it and it seemed to make sense. Then she wasn't so angry anymore. I'll pack my things. We'll leave right away. Xiang Kaiping stood up as she spoke. Her waist injury wasn't too big of a problem. She just needed to take care of it. Seeing that, Su Peijian stepped forward and said, "Let me help you." No need. Xiang Caiping's waist was not convenient. She didn't want to waste too much time. It's just a few clothes. Sit down and rest for a while. Mom? Just let me help you. Su Peijian looked nervous, but she also wanted to be close to her. From now on, only we, mother and daughter, will be left to rely on each other. Xiang Caiping's heart ached again, but she didn't refuse again. Because it was uncomfortable to look at this place, Xiang Kaiping only brought some clothes. Fortunately, she had planned to go to Rong City before, so she didn't unpack the 2 suitcases. There was nothing more to pack. After taking some of their belongings, Xiang Kaiping and Su Peijian left the room just like that. Outside, Xiaoyu was stunned when he heard the word "Mom." He didn't know what was going on inside. He told Xiaoning what had happened in a low voice. Neither of them knew what had happened. When Xiang Kaiping and Su Peijian came out, Xiaoyu went up to them first. He saw the 3 big suitcases next to Xiang Kaiping and Su Peijian. "Auntie Yu, we're not staying here. We're leaving now." During this period, Xiang Kaiping had been taken care of by these 2 caregivers. At this moment, Xiang Caiping's tone was considered friendly. "You two come with me." This. Xiao Ning and Xiao Yu looked at each other. Although they said they were taking care of Xiang Kaiping, they were hired by Hu Jinyao. Now that they were leaving, of course, they had to inform Hu Jinyao or Su Qingsang. "What is this? Since you're here to take care of my mother. Of course you'll be where my mother is." Su Peijian's attitude was considered polite. The 2 of them thought about it and felt that it made sense. After all, they were hired to take care of Xiang Kaiping. Naturally, they would be where Xiang Kaiping was. Thinking of this, Xiao Yu and Xiao Ning looked at each other. Finally, they went back to the guest room to pack their luggage and followed Su Peijian. Su Peijian drove here. When they went downstairs, she didn't forget to explain to Xiang Kaiping, "I was angry yesterday, so I drove out. I didn't think too much about it." "Mom, you're not angry, are you?" "Why would I be?" Xiang Kaiping knew what she was referring to. "Your father bought this car for you, right?" "Yes. It was her birthday present this year." However, Su Peijian didn't say this. After putting down the luggage and wheelchair, Xiang Kaiping got in the car and sat in the front passenger seat. Xiao Ning and Xiao Yu sat in the back. Su Peijian then drove to the apartment where she used to live. On the way, Xiao Ning was smart enough to send a message to Su Qingsang about what had happened here. She didn't say anything more. She only said that a young girl came and called Xiang Kaiping mom, and took Xiang Kaiping away. Now they were following her. Soon, Su Qingsang replied to the message. She asked them to continue to take care of Xiang Kaiping and to take good care of her. She also said that she would pay their salary regularly and asked them not to worry. Xiao Ning breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that the master didn't blame them. Otherwise they would be in trouble. As for the money, Hu Jinyao had paid for half a year's salary in one go. Su Qingsang put down her phone and felt a little emotional. She really didn't expect that Su Peijian would really acknowledge Xiang Kaiping. She thought that with Su Peijian's personality she wouldn't compromise so easily. No matter what, she would talk about it after a few fights. However, she didn't expect Su Peijian to acknowledge Xiang Kaiping so easily. It seemed that mother-daughter nature was like this. Xiang Kaiping was a good person. She only hoped that Su Peijian could treat her well. However, there was no hurry now. After all, Xiao Ning and Xiao Yu were still by Xiang Caiping's side. If anything happened, the 2 of them could call each other. Thinking of this, Su Qingsang was more or less relieved. She thought about it for a while and told Li Qianxue about it during dinner that night. She could see that Li Qianxue still had feelings for Su Peijian. Now that Su Peijian had acknowledged Xiang Kaiping, she was afraid that Li Qianxue would have other thoughts. "Mom. No matter what, Peijian is Auntie's biological daughter. Now that she has thought it through and is willing to acknowledge her, it can be considered a happy thing." Li Qianxue didn't speak. Her mood was more or less affected. The daughter she had raised for so many years ran away without a word, and now she was acknowledging another woman as her mother. She felt a little upset, but looking at Su Qingsang, she felt that it seemed to be understandable. She had acknowledged her own daughter. How could she stop others from reuniting with her own daughter? She rubbed her temples and spoke in a much softer voice. That's good. They can reunite and live a good life in the future. It won't be too bad. In the future, when Su Peijian got married, she would add some dowry to fulfill the mother-daughter relationship. Old Master Li was silent. No one knew what he was thinking. He turned to look at Su Qingsang. We are going to Rong City tomorrow. Is your luggage packed? Yes. Su Qingsang nodded. If there is anything missing, we can buy it when we get there. That's what I said. Li Qianxue looked at Old Master Li. She was afraid that he would be unhappy with Su Peijian's behavior, so she quickly changed the topic. Dad, didn't you have a friendship with Old Master Hua? It's good to take this opportunity to relax. Old Master Li frowned slightly. It's not really a friendship. We have met a few times. But he is a straightforward person. I didn't expect that the two families would become in-laws one day. This is also fate, Li Qianxue said with a smile. The three of them didn't say anything else. After dinner they talked about going to Rong City the next day, and then went back to their rooms to rest. The next day Su Qingsang got up early. Li Qianxue got up even earlier than her. The plane was at 10 o'clock. There was no need to get up so early. However, she thought about going to Rong City and seeing Hu Jinyao soon. Su Qingsang's heart flew with her. The two of them hadn't been apart for many days, just 2 or 3 days. But so many things had happened in between. She felt that she really hadn't seen Hu Jinyao for a long time. Li Qianxue saw that her daughter was in a good mood when she got up. She was a little jealous of Hu Jinyao, but more than that she was happy. It was also good that her daughter could be happy because her marriage was unfortunate. Thinking of this, she thought of Su Qinghui. Last night he called to ask if he could delay the signing for a few days. He would wait until he found Su Peijian. If Su Qingsang hadn't told Li Qianxue about Su Peijian going to Xiang Kaiping, Li Qianxue would have been deceived by him again. This man was really disgusting now. He knew that Su Peijian had gone to Xiang Kaiping and her mother. But he still said one thing to her face and another behind her back, saying that Su Peijian had disappeared and came to her to gain sympathy. If it weren't for the reputation of her 2 children in the future, Li Qianxue really wanted to completely fall out with him and make him lose face. She thought about coming to Rong City today. In the end, she didn't want to make things difficult for herself. She left this matter to Lawyer Qin to deal with. Anyway, she was in no hurry. Su Qinghui could escape for a while, but he couldn't escape forever. When she came back from Rong City, he would have to sign it even if he didn't want to. Mom, let's go. When she came back to her senses and met Su Qingsang's concerned eyes, Li Qianxue felt warm. One on the left and one on the right, the two of them supported Old Master Li out of the door. When the plane landed in Rong City, it was just after lunchtime. Old Master Li was getting old and such a short flight was tiring. After more than 2 hours on the plane he wanted to rest. Before coming, Li Qianxue had already begun to pay attention to the houses here, but even if they found a suitable one, they had to clean it up first. Therefore, the three of them could only stay in a hotel for the time being. Li Qianxue rented the presidential suite of the largest 5-star hotel in Rong City. After entering the room, she asked Old Master Li to rest for a while. She also wanted to rest for a while and then visit Old Master Hua the next morning. Su Qingsang was hungry, so she asked the hotel to send food upstairs. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Su Qingsang thought it was the hotel, so she didn't think much and quickly ran to open the door. However, when she opened the door, the person standing outside was Hu Jinyao. Chapter 461. Hu Jinyao. She blinked hard. It wasn't an illusion. It was really Hu Jinyao. He was holding a thick coat, wearing gloves and a scarf around his neck. Rong City was in the north. It had just snowed outside and the weather was very cold. But Su Qingsang couldn't hide the surprise on her face. Before she could react, her body had already stepped forward and hugged him tightly. Hu Jinyao smiled and reached out to hold Su Qingsang in his arms. He lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. Su Qingsang turned around and kissed him. Her eyes were full of surprise and surprise. Why are you here? No, how did you know I was here? How did you know I was in the hotel? I knew as soon as you got off the plane. It was a coincidence. When Su Qingsang left the airport, she met Li Junxing, who was on his way back to Lin City. Of course, he recognized Su Qingsang. He found that they were actually walking in the direction of a taxi, and no one came to pick them up. He was a little surprised, so he called Hu Jinyao and asked why he didn't get someone to pick Su Qingsang up. Only then did Hu Jinyao know that Su Qingsang had come to Rong City. The hotel she was staying in belonged to Wan Xianying's family. He knew as soon as Su Qingsang checked in. The company wasn't very far from here, and he knew that Su Qingsang was coming, so he naturally came to see his wife as soon as possible. When Su Qingsang saw Hu Jinyao, she couldn't help but lean over and kiss his lips several times. Although Hu Jinyao was very satisfied with his wife's closeness, it was far from enough. He hooked his arm around her slender waist and kissed her deeply. Su Qingsang hooked her arms around his neck and let him carry her off the ground to respond to his kiss. They hadn't seen each other for a few days. Absence really made the heart grow fonder. Hu Jinyao was a little moved. He carried her and took 2 steps inside. With a gentle push of his heel, the door closed. He turned his body and was about to press Su Qingsang against the wall deeper when he heard a cough behind him. Hu Jinyao and Su Qingsang quickly separated. Su Qingsang in particular, gritted her teeth and glared at him. Li Qianxue didn't expect to see such a scene as soon as she came out of the room. She was also a little uncomfortable. She cleared her throat and looked at Hu Jinyao. "Why are you here?" Hu Jinyao told them the reason for his appearance. He looked at Li Qianxue and said, "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were coming? I'll send someone to pick you up. I wanted to give you a surprise." Su Qingsang hooked her arm around his. "What do you think? Are you surprised? What do you think?" Hu Jinyao rubbed the top of her head affectionately. The young couple seemed to be very close. Li Qianxue felt much better after hearing Hu Jinyao call her mother and seeing how much he cared about her daughter. Hu Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist and said, "Since you're back, let's stay at home. Who would stay in a hotel after returning? I was going to visit you tomorrow." Li Qianxue looked at Hu Jinyao and said, "I don't think your family agreed to your marriage. That's why I thought of paying a visit with Qingsang's grandfather tomorrow. First, it was to let the marriage between the 2 families go through the open road. Second, it was to show the Hua family their attitude. Their Qingsang also had a maiden family. Then Mom and Grandpa can stay here. I'll take Qingsang home." "No need. I'll stay here with Mom. Anyway, it'll be the same if we go tomorrow." "Okay." Hu Jinyao didn't object. However, Li Qianxue thought about it and felt that it wasn't appropriate. "Forget it, Qingsang, I don't need your company. You should go home with Hu Jinyao." "Mom?" Su Qingsang was a little surprised. "We're going to stay in Rong City for a few days anyway. You guys go home first. You're already back and married to Hu Jinyao. If you don't go back with him, it won't be good." If it weren't for the fact that it was afternoon and inconvenient to visit, Li Qianxue and Old Master Li would have visited the Hua family as soon as possible. According to the customs of Lin City, visiting one's in-laws for the first time couldn't be done after noon. Okay. I'll stay here and have dinner with you before going back." Su Qingsang looked at Hu Jinyao as she spoke. "What do you think? You can decide such a small matter." As Hu Jinyao spoke, the waiter had already brought lunch over. Li Qianxue called out Old Master Li. He saw that Hu Jinyao had come. He wasn't surprised. Hu Jinyao greeted Old Master Li. He hadn't had lunch yet, so they went together. "Mom, if you're in good spirits this afternoon, why don't I take you around? Wouldn't it be inconvenient? Don't you need to go to work?" "It's okay. The company won't collapse even if I don't go to the company for half a day." "That's good." Old Master Li had been very satisfied with this grandson-in-law before, and now he could only be even more satisfied. "You're in luck. It was still snowing in Rong City the day before yesterday. It was cloudy yesterday, but it's sunny today." Hu Jinyao waited for them to pack up and took them out of the room. He said, "There's a square nearby with a nice view of the snow. I'll take you guys for a walk." It was the first snow in Rong City after the beginning of spring, and it was very heavy. In the morning, Li Qianxue and the others got off the plane and were amazed. After all, it rarely snowed in Lin City. Even if it did, it was sleet. "I wanted to see it just now." When Su Qingsang got off the plane, she wanted to take pictures of the snow. She wanted to settle Old Master Li and the others first, so she went back to the hotel. After leaving the hotel and getting into the car, Su Qingsang rubbed her hands. "So cold. Are you cold?" There was a heater in the car, but it was really cold when they went out just now. Hu Jinyao took Su Qingsang's hand and put it in his arms. "I'll warm it for you." "No." Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed and looked at Old Master Li and Li Qianxue, who were sitting on the other side of the car. "When we go back, I really want Auntie Wang to give you good nutrition. I think your hands get cold in winter." "I think so too." Li Qianxue saw that her son-in-law was so nice to her daughter and felt comfortable. "Look at Qingsang, she's so thin. She's grown up and I can't control her anymore. You can control her later and make her eat more." "Mom, I'm not thin, okay?" Su Qingsang retorted. "I have a standard figure." "Mom, don't worry." Hua Jinyao squeezed her little hand. I'll give Qingsang good nutrition. Su Qingsang glared at him with a hint of reproach in her eyes. Hua Jinyao squeezed her little hand and said softly, don't worry. Auntie Wang is good at making medicinal cuisine. She'll make you fat. Screw you. Su Qingsang couldn't help but say, do you think you're feeding pigs? You admit that you're a pig. I didn't say that. Hua Jinyao. Was he itching for a beating? Su Qingsang gritted her teeth and couldn't help but want to hit him. She seemed to be about to explode, which made Hua Jinyao's smile even more obvious. Li Qianxue sat on the side and watched with a smile, but she couldn't hide the bitterness in her heart. Su Qingsang was so comfortable with Hua Jinyao. As a mother, she had never seen her like this. In her impression, Su Qingsang had almost no presence in the Su family. Every time there were guests at home, she hid in her room while waiting. Every time something happened in the Su family, she basically didn't show up. When eating, she would sit as far away from Su Qinghui and Old Master Li as possible, trying to be invisible. She used to think that Su Qingsang was like that. Now she knew that wasn't the case. She also had such a lively and cheerful side, but as a mother, she could only see this side of her daughter because of her son-in-law. Thinking of this, Li Qianxue hated Su Qinghui even more. If it weren't for him, why would Su Qingsang suppress her nature? Why was she so cautious before? Li Qianxue really wronged Su Qinghui in this matter. Su Qingsang had always been a cold person. She slowly changed after she got together with Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang raised her hand and wanted to pinch Hua Jinyao. Then she realized that Li Qianxue and Old Master Li were both there, so she had to put her hand down. Then she sat down and couldn't help it. She rolled her eyes at Hua Jinyao. In Li Qianshue's eyes, Su Qingsang's action was a sign that she was still afraid of her. Her heart became more and more bitter. She also decided to treat Su Qingsang better in the future. Rong City was very prosperous and it was very close to the capital. There used to be a foreign concession here. The square that Hua Jinyao mentioned used to be one of the concessions. Because it was a concession of two countries, they were separated by a street so they could clearly see one architectural style on the left and another on the right. Such a street view could not be seen in other cities. And in the middle there was a huge fountain. At this time, because it was snowing, it was covered with thick snow. The car was parked very far away and a group of people walked over. The snow on the road had been swept away by the sanitation workers. But the snow on the roofs and on both sides of the road was still very thick. When the wind blew, Su Qingsang's body trembled. Hua Jinyao wrapped his arms around her shoulders in time. Su Qingsang smiled at him and stopped to wait for Old Master Li and Li Qianxue. Li Qianxue was fine. She had been to the snow village in the past. Old Master Li was also in good spirits, but he walked a little slowly because of the wind. Grandpa, are you okay? I'm fine. Old Master Li waved his hand. Seeing the nervous eyes of the younger generation, he waved his hand and said, okay, I have a cane. I don't need you to help me. Parking was not allowed here. The former embassies of various countries on both sides had now been turned into shops. It could be called one of the most prosperous streets in Rong City. The last time Su Qingsang came here, she had also been here, but it hadn't snowed at that time. Now that it was snowing, it was a completely different street view. As a southerner, Su Qingsang really felt that it was very novel to see snow. When walking to the open space in front, Su Qingsang saw many children playing games in the distance, making snowmen and having snowball fights. She suddenly became playful. She grabbed a handful of snow on the side and threw it at Hua Jinyao. Chapter 462. Ah! Su Qingsang quickly dodged. Hua Jinyao wouldn't let her go so easily. Growing up in the north, she moved much faster than Su Qingsang. He threw 3 of them in a row. In the end, Su Qingsang only dodged 1, and the other 2 were hit by him. Unconvinced, she hid behind the fountain and made a snowball to fight back. However, it didn't hit Hua Jinyao but Li Qianxue. Su Qingsang was embarrassed. She stood there and didn't know where to put her hands. It's okay. Li Qianxue was happy to see her daughter so lively. Afraid that Su Qingsang would feel uncomfortable, she even made a snowball and threw it in Su Qingsang's direction. Li Qianshue's action made Su Qingsang feel relieved, but she was hit by Hua Jinyao again. She was annoyed. He picked up a handful of snow and rushed toward Hua Jinyao. On the other side, Li Qianxue clapped her hands and brushed the snow off her body. Turning around, she found that Old Master Li was looking at her, and she felt a little uncomfortable. Dad. In the past, Old Master Li always wanted her to be a standard lady. But the act of throwing snowballs was not ladylike. That's good. Old Master Li patted her hand. Don't look at me. I can see through it now. These feelings were all formed in the first place. Qing Sang is not bad, but she hasn't opened her heart to you yet. You just need to spend more time. After a while she will know. Yes. Li Qianxue nodded. She thought so too. How could old Master Li not know that Su Qing Sang was estranged from them? It was just that he saw through it but did not say it out loud. This was also the reason why he agreed to let Li Qianxue come to Rong City. Let's get along slowly. He wanted to nurture his relationship with his granddaughter. Don't worry, Qing Sang is a good kid. She'll grow closer to you. I know, Dad. Li Qianxue watched as Hu Jinyao kept hitting Su Qing Sang, but Su Qing Sang didn't hit a single one. His face was flushed with anger. Hu Jinyao stopped to comfort her, but he didn't know that she was pretending to be angry. When he got close, a snowball flew over. Seeing that Hu Jinyao was hit, she giggled in the wind. The laughter was heard and Li Qianxue also laughed. It didn't matter. She was still young and had a long way to go. She was in no hurry. Li Qianxue wasn't the only one who saw Hu Jinyao and Su Qing Sang playing in the snow. Someone else saw it as well. Stop. Lu Lixin touched his chin and gestured for the driver to stop the car, then rolled down the window. Beside him was his friend, Shen Jishang. On such a cold day when the wind blew in, Shen Jishang shrunk his body. What's going on? Close the window. Am I seeing things? Isn't that Hu Jinyao? Shen Jishang glanced at it from afar. It seems so. Why is he here? Don't you have to work today? Who knows? Who is the woman with him? Isn't he married? Hu Jinyao had gotten married in a low-key manner. The last time he brought Su Qing Sang back, he only stayed for a few days before leaving. That was why Lu Lixin had never met Su Qing Sang. After staring for a while, he suddenly looked at Shen Jishang and said, "Let's go down and take a look." What do you want? Shen Jishang looked at him and opened the door. Hey, you can't park here. Lu Lixin acted as if he hadn't heard him and quickly walked to Hu Jinyao. Su Qing Sang had been fighting with Hu Jinyao for a long time, so she was exhausted. Leaning against Hu Jinyao's chest, she was so cold that her face was red, and she couldn't stop panting. You cheated? Su Qing Sang was furious. You're so bad. She had only pretended to be angry, but Hu Jinyao had pretended to be injured. When she came to, she had been hit several times. Honey, I'm really touched that you care about me so much. Who cares about you? Su Qing Sang gently patted him. She was angry at herself for losing the battle. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going to my mother's. Li Qianxue and old Master Li weren't like young people like them. They picked a cafe and went to rest. Cousin? Hu Jinyao's smile disappeared when he heard the voice. He turned around and looked at Lu Lixin. Cousin, what a coincidence. Why are you here? Lu Lixin smiled brightly, but in Su Qing Sang's eyes, there was something indescribable about it. Her first reaction was that she didn't like this person. Hu Jinyao didn't answer Lu Lixin's question. He just hummed in response. Lu Lixin didn't mind Hu Jinyao's cold attitude. He glanced at Su Qing Sang with a meaningful look in his eyes. This is, since Hu Jinyao was married. She had to be a woman from another family. She was quite pretty. This is your cousin-in-law. Hu Jinyao's voice turned cold and his face darkened. Cousin-in-law? Lu Lixin was surprised. Isn't she in Lin City? Is she back? Yes. Hu Jinyao had no choice but to introduce them to Su Qing Sang. Qing Sang, this is Lu Lixin, my uncle's son. This is Su Qing Sang, your cousin-in-law. Be more respectful next time. Of course. She didn't come back for the new year and I didn't have the chance to meet her. I thought she was you. Lu Lixin coughed. He didn't finish his sentence, but Hu Jinyao and Su Qing Sang understood what he meant. Hu Jinyao's face darkened. He glanced at him coldly. Don't talk nonsense. Do you think everyone is like you? Speaking of Lu Lixin, he was his uncle's son. He had been spoiled by his parents since he was a child. When he grew up, he didn't have a proper job. He relied on his family's wealth to indulge in debauchery. Hu Jinyao had never liked Lu Lixin. Similarly, Lu Lixin didn't like Hu Jinyao either. Lu Lixin didn't like Hu Jinyao either. Hu Jinyao entered the Chanyu group at a young age. His methods were high and he did things swiftly and decisively. Other people who weren't as wealthy as the Hua family would always praise Hu Jinyao. Especially Hu Jinyao's uncle Lu Qingren. Every time he saw Lu Lixin misbehaving, he would compare him to Hu Jinyao. His mantra was, look at Hu Jinyao. As time went by, Hu Jinyao didn't like Lu Lixin, and Lu Lixin disliked Hu Jinyao even more. Yes. I'm just a spoiled brat. Of course I can't compare to people like you who are virtuous and ambitious. Lu Lixin wasn't angry at Hu Jinyao's humiliation. He laughed at himself, then turned to Su Qingsang. Since you're my cousin-in-law, I wonder when you'll be free. Come to our house. My father has always treated my cousin as my biological brother. Cousin, you should bring my sister-in-law to meet my father too, right? I'll visit uncle in a few days. Hu Jinyao didn't like Lu Lixin, but he still respected Lu Qingren. Lu Lixin saw the displeasure in Hu Jinyao's eyes when he finished speaking. He thought that Su Qingsang was Hu Jinyao's mistress when he saw her from afar. He was thinking that if it was true he could have a good talk with his father. It wasn't a good idea to look at Hu Jinyao either. That way his father wouldn't compare Hu Jinyao to him all the time. Not now. Lu Lixin felt bored, so he bade farewell to the man and left. On his way back, he ran into Xin Zhishang, who had parked his car and was walking over. Lu Lixin was getting bored when he suddenly had an idea. So what if she wasn't his mistress? It was office hours. Hu Jinyao had left his work to hang out with his wife. Wasn't he also addicted to women? Lu Lixin was in a good mood. He patted Xin Zhishang's shoulder and said, "Let's go. Let's go somewhere." Where? To see my aunt. He had finally found Hu Jinyao's weakness, so he had to take advantage of it. Should he complain to his aunt about him? I'm not going. Xin Zhishang was most afraid of Lu Tongjia. Everyone in Rong City knew that the scariest person in the Hua family was an old Master Hua, but Lu Tongjia. When she scolded people with a cold face, even Lu Lixin couldn't stop her. Xin Zhishang often went out with Lu Lixin to have fun. Lu Tongjia had criticized him a lot. However, Lu Tongjia was the president of the Women's Chamber of Commerce in Rong City. Their parents all knew Lu Tongjia. Every time they were caught doing something bad, they would talk about it in front of their mothers. As time went by, all the rich boys in Rong City became afraid of Lu Tongjia. Don't worry. My aunt won't scold you this time. Lu Lixin winked at Xin Zhishang. His eyes were full of evil intentions. What did you say? Su Peijian's face darkened when she heard the news from the other side of the phone. Su Qingsang isn't in Lin City? Where did she go? I see. Su Peijian's face darkened after she hung up. Su Qingsang went to Rong City? Did she know that I was going to deal with her? No, that was impossible. They wouldn't be stupid enough to leak the conversation she had with Luo Haonan that night. Su Peijian realized that Hu Jinyao was from Rong City. She had gone to Rong City to be with her man. She didn't have any friends in Rong City and she wasn't familiar with the place. It would be difficult for her to deal with Su Qingsang. Su Peijian thought for a while, then picked up her phone and called home. It was Xiao Yu who answered. Xiao Yu, where's my mom? Xiao Yu was surprised to receive Su Peijian's call. Mrs. Qin went to Rong City. She's not home right now. Xiao Yu didn't think too much about it. After all, Mrs. Qin didn't tell her not to tell anyone where she was going. Moreover, Su Peijian was a member of the Su family. What about Grandpa? Old Master went there too. Xiao Yu thought for a while and added, Old Master went to Rong City with Mrs. Qin. He went with Su Qingsang, didn't he? Su Peijian's tone grew colder. Xiao Yu realized that she had said something wrong. She apologized and hung up the phone with the excuse that she had something to do in the kitchen. Chapter 463. Su Peijian looked at the word, Dad, flashing on the screen. She pressed her lips into a straight line. Like Xiang Kaiping, the person Su Peijian hated the most was Su Qinghui. She hated him for changing her identity. She hated that he didn't harden his heart to the end. He just had to expose her at this time. She hated that he didn't speak up for her in front of Li Qianxue and let her drive her out. What she hated the most was that he gave her the dream of being a princess, but in the end it was shattered. After thinking for a long time, Su Peijian finally picked up the phone. Dad. Peijian, you finally picked up my call. Where are you now? Su Qinghui had been calling Su Peijian non-stop. However, Su Peijian didn't pick up. When he tried to contact Li Qianxue, he was mocked by her for a long time. She said that he did it on purpose, saying that Su Peijian was missing so that he wouldn't sign the papers. He wanted to explain, but she hung up the phone. Su Qinghui didn't expect that Li Qianxue could be so cold to Su Peijian now. He didn't know that Li Qianxue already knew that Su Peijian and Xiang Kaiping had reconciled. Naturally, she thought he was lying. Su Qinghui was relieved that he finally got in touch with his daughter. Peijian, where have you been these 2 days? I've been looking for you everywhere, but I can't find you. I'm so worried. Worried? I'm an adult. I won't get lost. What's there to worry about? Su Peijian didn't want to hear Su Qinghui's hypocritical concern. If he really cared about her, he should find a way to restore her identity. How can you talk to Dad like that? Su Qinghui was shocked by his daughter's attitude. His face was a little pale. Su Peijian lowered her head. She knew that her attitude was wrong, but she couldn't bring herself to apologize. Dad, what's the matter? I just wanted to ask where you are. Peijian, some things have happened. I hope. Dad, can you restore my identity? Su Peijian suddenly said seriously, can you let my mother recognize me again? Su Qinghui was stunned. How was that possible? Li Qianshua's attitude was so fierce and resistant during the calls. She knew that Su Peijian was missing, but she didn't care. How could she recognize Su Peijian? Peijian, actually, I've thought about it for you. The funds you invested in 2 years ago and the ones your family bought for you. Even if you don't have the identity of the eldest daughter of the Su family, you can still live well for the rest of your life. Su Qinghui softened his voice and added, in 2 years when you get married, I'll give you another dowry. Why are you so fixated on that identity? This identity was stolen in the first place. Now that he knew, he naturally had to return it. He had also thought about it for Su Peijian as long as she did not spend too much. With her current net worth, she could live a carefree life for the rest of her life. After all, Su Peijian had been by his side in the early years. She had many funds and stocks under her. With these dividends, she had a considerable income every year. Hee hee. Su Peijian chuckled. Status? What else could people live in this world if not by status? Peijian? All right. Since you can't help me achieve my wish, then I have nothing to say to you. Peijian. Su Qinghui was hit by Su Peijian's attitude. How can you say that? What else can I say? Su Peijian chuckled. You don't want me anymore. You kicked me out. What else can I say? No one kicked you out. Su Qinghui didn't want Su Peijian to misunderstand Li Qianxue. Your mother didn't kick you out. She just said that I am no longer her daughter. But you are still my daughter. That's good. I will move back to the Su family today and live with you. What do you think? Su Qinghui was speechless. He couldn't tell her that he had actually been kicked out by Li Qianxue. Peijian, I have a villa in Nanjiang district. How about we live there for the time being? No need. Su Peijian didn't want to talk about this. I have a place to live now. You don't have to worry about it, Dad. Peijian, are you blaming me? I don't dare. How could I blame you? Actually, I should thank you. I am an illegitimate daughter who has enjoyed the life of the eldest daughter of the Su family for more than 20 years. Su Qinghui was really uncomfortable now. He didn't expect that the daughter he had doted on for so many years would say such a thing now. Peijian, this is indeed my fault. But for so many years, whether it is your mother, me, or your grandfather, all of them have loved you. Which one of them doesn't love you dearly in the palm of their hands? You said that you have enjoyed the life of the Su family for more than 20 years. Why can't you recognize the reality now? I admit it. I recognize it. So, Dad, since I am no longer the eldest daughter of the Su family, I am just an illegitimate daughter. You don't have to care about me. You can just ignore me like Su Qingsang and let me live and die on my own. Su Peijian. That's all. Su Peijian hung up the phone. The anger in her heart made her uncomfortable. She didn't suppress it even when she returned to her apartment. Xiang Kaiping looked more energetic. Her daughter was back anyway. She had something to look forward to again. Moreover, Su Peijian was the little rabbit who was bullied by the Li family. She felt that she must live well and take good care of Su Peijian. You are back? Dinner is ready. You can eat now. The moment Su Peijian saw Xiang Kaiping, she squeezed out a smile. Mom, I had something to do today and came back a little late. You won't blame me, right? Why would I? Xiang Kaiping held her hand. If you really have something to do, you can call me if you don't come back for dinner. Thank you, Mom. Mom, you are so nice. Let's eat. Xiang Kaiping and Su Peijian sat down. Since Xiang Kaiping recognized Su Peijian, she wanted to get along well with her, just like how she treated Su Qingsang. You have been out for half a day. Have you finished your business? At the mention of this, Su Peijian's face darkened. Xiang Kaiping was anxious. What's wrong? What happened? Nothing. Su Peijian shook her head. Mom, I actually went out to look for a job today. You know, since I was kicked out of the Su family, I can't go back to work in the Li group. That's why I went out to look for a job today, but I didn't expect. At this point, Su Peijian suddenly smiled and said, Forget it. Let's not talk about it. Mom, let's eat. What happened? Tell me clearly. Nothing. Su Peijian bit her lip and sounded a little sad. I asked a few companies that I used to work with, but they didn't laugh at me and said that I was down and out. They just asked me why I left the Lee group and went out to look for a job. Mom, I really can't stand this kind of anger. In the future, as long as I am in the business circle of Lin City, I won't be able to hold my head high. Mom, that's too much. Xiang Kaiping put down her chopsticks and was a little angry. Patient, don't worry about it. They're just snobs who look down on people. They're not worth your anger. I know. Su Peixian bit her lip and looked aggrieved. It doesn't matter if I am laughed at. I am just afraid that I won't be able to find a job if I go out like this. After all, if I can't even stay in the Lee group, who would want me? Her words were very suggestive. People who didn't know better would think that the Lee group had kicked her out, so other companies wouldn't want her. Outrageous. Xiang Kaiping was really angry this time. What is Li Qinxue trying to do? Is she bullying people? Isn't she just relying on her family's money? Mom, actually, if I can't find a job, I can just use less money. But I still want to make money so I can be filial to you. But, Xiang Kaiping looked at her and felt a little pain in her heart. No matter what, she was her daughter. A few years ago, she was the daughter of a rich family. Now that she had become like this, it was no wonder that people treated her like this. I don't think I can stay in Lin City anymore. If I stay here any longer, I will just be a joke. Su Peixian's voice became more and more aggrieved. Who dares? Xiang Caiping's voice was a little higher, as if she was afraid of scaring Su Peixian. She suppressed her anger and suppressed it. Peixian, why don't you leave Lin City with me? She looked at Su Peixian tentatively. Leave this place? Su Peixian blinked, looking confused. But where else can I go if I leave this place? Rong City. Xiang Kaiping had already made up her mind. Mom has a business in Rong City, although it's not as good as the Li family's. But it's enough for us to live. If you don't like working for others, I can also let you manage the 2 supermarkets under my name. What do you think of this? Su Peixian looked at Xiang Kaiping and sneered inwardly. It was just 2 supermarkets. Did she think she would care? However, if he went to Rong City, he could be closer to Su Qingsang. Therefore, she pretended to be touched and looked at Xiang Kaiping with tears in her eyes. Mom, I'm so sorry. You're so nice. All right. Don't cry. I told you, from now on, everything I have is yours. I just hope that everything will be smooth and happy in the future. I'm satisfied. All right. Su Peixian blinked her eyes and forced back her tears. She put her arm around Xiang Caiping's arm and said, Mom, don't worry. When I make some money, I'll be sure to take good care of you. Then I'll wait. They were mother and daughter after all. Seeing that her daughter was happy, Xiang Kaiping was also relieved. The atmosphere here seemed to be good, but on the other side of Rong City, the atmosphere was not so good. Lu Tongjia looked at Lu Lixin with a sullen face. What did you say? Say it again. Lu Lixin was frightened by his aunt's attitude and shrank back. Well, I said that I saw my cousin and his wife in the square. Isn't he working today? I just wanted to ask why he didn't go to work. While Lu Lixin was blinking his eyes, Lu Tongjia was infuriated. Chapter 464. Lu Lixin was a little scared by Lu Tongjia's attitude. No. My cousin introduced her like this. He said her name was Su something Sang. Lu Lixin couldn't remember. Lu Tongjia sneered. Su Qingsang. Yes, that's her name. Lu Lixin found that his aunt seemed to be very angry, but he couldn't figure out why. Was she angry at Jinyao for taking Su Qingsang out? Or was she angry at her daughter-in-law? Why did she sound so angry? Old Master Hua, who was sitting on the side, didn't look too good. As for Hua Mingguang, his expression was even worse. Lu Tongjia was the one who looked the most upset. She stood up and looked at Old Master Hua. Dad, look. What did I say? I said that a woman from a small family like Hua Jinyao would be short-sighted and ignorant. What did you say? You said that Jinyao picked her himself. It's fine as long as he likes her. But now? She's back, but she's not going home. Instead, she's having fun outside. Does she have any respect for this family? Does she have any respect for us? Old Master Hua didn't look happy, but he was still rational. We haven't figured it out yet. Maybe there's some other reason. What reason? What other reason could there be? Does she think I can't tell? She knows that I don't like her, so she won't even go home with Jinyao. Otherwise, what other reason could there be? The more Lu Tongjia thought about it, the angrier she got. I told him to break up with that woman a long time ago, but he wouldn't listen. Now he's been seduced by her? That's enough. That's enough. Old Master Hua had never been dissatisfied with Lu Tongjia, but sometimes he thought that she was too arrogant. He wasn't happy that Su Qingsang was back, but she didn't come home. But he wasn't an unreasonable elder. Call Jinyao and ask him what's going on. Lu Tongjia, on the other hand, was furious. I won't fight. I want to see when he's going to bring her home. I also want to see how arrogant this Su Qingsang is. If she has the guts, she can stay away from our family forever. Old Master Huo furrowed his brows. Although he didn't agree with Lu Tongjia, he didn't say anything. Lu Lixin sat to the side with a gloating look on his face. Huo Jinyao held Su Qingsang's hand and walked to the cafe where Old Master Li and Li Qianxue were. How are you these days? The reason why Huo Jinyao returned to Rong City earlier was that he wanted Su Qingsang to spend more time with Li Qianxue. The phone call from before sounded good. Not bad. Su Qingsang smiled at him and told him about Li Qianxue accompanying her to Rong City. I think she's fine. Originally, she wanted me to accompany her for a few more days, but in the end she followed me so far away. It's cold here and I can tell that she's not used to it. Yes. He also said that he would buy me a house. Su Qingsang repeated Li Qianxue's words. He couldn't help but laugh. How could I have fallen to such a state? If you feel sorry for me, I can just find a hotel to stay in. Huo Jinyao suddenly stopped and stood in front of Su Qingsang, looking down at her. You don't believe me? Of course not. I didn't say that. Su Qingsang put on an innocent face. Huo Jinyao narrowed his eyes and suddenly put his face in front of Su Qingsang's. You'd better not have such thoughts. So what if I do? Su Qingsang raised her petite face with a provocative look. Huo Jinyao suddenly turned his face and bit her on the lips. Su Qingsang took a step back in pain. Huo Jinyao put his arm around her waist and looked at her with narrowed eyes. If you have such thoughts, I don't mind proving it with my actions. Su Qingsang understood what he meant by, prove it with my actions. She blushed. Stop it. My mom is waiting. Huo Jinyao turned to take her hand and led her to the direction of the cafe. The buildings on the outer streets nearby were of foreign style, but the buildings 2 streets away were of local characteristics. After resting in the cafe for a while, Huo Jinyao took Old Master Li and Li Qianxue to walk around. There were a lot of toys, but Li Qianxue and Old Master Li were not interested. Su Qingsang, on the other hand, was very interested. She looked at the stalls here and there for a while. Often, Huo Jinyao said he wanted to buy it after she took a few glances at it. Su Qingsang couldn't stand it, so she stopped looking. These are just fun to look at. There's no place to put them at home. Let's go. I just heard that there's a food street up ahead. Huo Jinyao raised his eyebrows and looked at Li Qianxue and Old Master Li behind him. They were not people who would go to the food street to eat. Su Qingsang stuck out her tongue. She really wanted to go. Qingsang, go if you want to. We'll accompany you. Although Li Qianxue had never eaten roadside food, she could eat whatever her daughter liked. Then let's go and have a look? Su Qingsang's overly cautious attitude made Li Qianxue's heart ache again. She took her hand and turned to look at Old Master Li. Dad, I've never been to a place like that. Let's go together. Old Master Li had no reason to disagree. So the group turned a corner and went to the food street not far away. Su Qingsang was too embarrassed to eat in front of so many people. However, when she saw the roasted sweet potatoes, she couldn't help it. I want one. It had just snowed, so it was very cold here. It was very comfortable to eat a hot roasted sweet potato. No. Huo Jinyao rejected immediately. Such a big one. You won't eat dinner after eating it. Then I'll eat half and you can eat the other half. Huo Jinyao looked disgusted. Su Qingsang was annoyed. Hey, are you eating or not? No. Huo Jinyao was quite unyielding. Didn't you see the news? When he saw the old man looking at the roasted sweet potato, Huo Jinyao cleverly stopped talking. Su Qingsang gave him a smug look and went forward to ask for 2 sticks. The old man helped her pack them. When he heard that she didn't bring change, he took out his phone and asked her to scan the QR code. Uncle, you're so fashionable. You even know this payment app. This is called keeping up with the times. I asked my son to teach me for a long time before I learned it. The old man smiled and looked at Su Qingsang. Little girl, are you full with so many people eating only 2? I'll give you another one. No need, no need. Thank you, uncle. That's enough. Su Qingsang was shocked by the old man's enthusiasm and hurriedly brought 2 sweet potatoes over. When she brought them over, she glanced at Li Qianxue. Mom, do you want to try? Li Qianxue's expression was very good at this time. She had lived for almost half of her life and had never eaten something like this. Looking at the roasted sweet potato that was still steaming, her expression was a little strange. Mom, don't you want one? This is really delicious. Su Qingsang looked at Li Qinshua's expression and knew that she had never eaten something like this. I'm not lying to you. When I was in college, Shi Mingwan and I often went to the school gate to buy this after the evening self-study session. Let's try it, Old Master Li said first. He took the sweet potato, directly broke it open and gave half to Li Qinshu. When I was young, I ate a lot of this. It doesn't make sense that my stomach has become fragile now that I'm old. Dad. Li Qinshu had no choice but to take it, but her face was full of embarrassment. You're not asking me to eat this on the street, are you? It's not a big deal. They don't know us anyway. Su Qingsang smiled, turned around and gave half of it to Hu Jinyao. The meaning in her eyes was obvious. Grandpa and Mom both ate it. It didn't make sense that he was more fragile than them, right? Hu Jinyao rubbed the top of her head and took the half of the sweet potato helplessly. He took a bite and found that it was quite sweet. It's not bad. It is. Su Qingsang was satisfied. Let's go. Hu Jinyao felt a little helpless. He was the dignified young Master Hua. When had he ever eaten from such a stall? It was also to cooperate with Su Qingsang. But Su Qingsang thought it was quite good. Hu Jinyao, a tall man more than 1.8 meters tall, held a roasted sweet potato and ate it on the road. Feeling the gazes around him, he wanted to throw the sweet potato away. Li Qinshu actually felt uncomfortable. No matter how spoiled she was still raised by Old Master Li as the daughter of a noble family. When had she ever done such a thing? However, seeing that Su Qingsang was eating, she reluctantly took a bite. Unexpectedly, after the first bite, although she didn't think it was as delicious as Su Qingsang said. But this was really something she had never tasted before and it was quite refreshing. Another thing was that eating the food that her daughter liked seemed to be a little closer to Su Qingsang. The group of people strolled like this for the whole afternoon. In the evening, Hu Jinyao found a local specialty restaurant and took Old Master Li and the other two to try the local specialties. After shopping for the whole afternoon, Old Master Li and Li Qinshua's impression of Hu Jinyao increased a lot. It wasn't because of Hu Jinyao's status, but because with his status, it was already quite good that he could do what he did. After eating and drinking, Hu Jinyao sent the two elders back to the hotel. Grandpa, Mom. What time will you wake up tomorrow morning? I'll arrange for someone to pick you up. Since we're going to visit the in-laws, it can't be too early or too late. Let's go to 9 o'clock. Okay. I'll ask Wenchang to come at 8:50 in the morning. When Hu Jinyao said this, he glanced at Li Qinshu. Wenchang is my assistant. You should have met him. It's okay. You can arrange it. Li Qinshu was really a mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law now. The more she looked at him, the more interested she was. Then I'll take Qingsang home first. Okay. Su Qingsang took her luggage and followed Hu Jinyao back home. Chapter 465. The Hua family was brightly lit. Old Master Hua Mingguang and Lu Tongjia sat on the long U-shaped sofa in the hall. The two brothers Hua Mingliang and Hua Yifan. What surprised him the most was that Lu Lixin was also present. Hu Jinyao glanced at Lu Lixin, then at Old Master Hua's face. Grandpa Qingsang is back. Old Master Hua glanced at him and nodded in response. Su Qingsang felt that the atmosphere was not quite right when she entered the room. But she was thinking about something else. He didn't come back for Chinese New Year and he didn't come back for the Lantern Festival either. Although she had called Old Master Hua to wish him a Happy New Year, the old man was probably still angry. Grandpa. Su Qingsang stepped forward and greeted the elders. The others were still fine. They all maintained each other's dignity and responded. Lu Tongjia was the only one who snorted and looked away. Su Qingsang had long known that Lu Tongjia didn't like her. He thought for a moment, then turned to look at Hu Jinyao. Hu Jinyao took 2 steps forward and put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist. Mom, Qingsang must be tired from the flight from Lin City today. I'll take her upstairs to rest first. I'm tired. Lu Tongjia got even angrier when she saw Hu Jinyao defending Su Qingsang like that. How can I not be tired? They have been playing outside for an entire day. Of course I am tired. Hu Jinyao glanced at Lu Lixin. As soon as he met her gaze, he shrunk his neck and turned his face away. The corners of Hu Jinyao's lips curled up. He didn't pay any attention to his unreliable cousin who liked to fan the flames. Grandpa. Qingsang's flight this morning would arrive at noon. Her mother and grandfather also came, so she didn't come back immediately. Hu Jinyao didn't look at Lu Tongjia. He only said to Old Master Hua, Qingsang's grandfather is Li Yongfeng. He was the former chairman of the Li Group in Lin City. This time he came with Qingsang's mother to pay you a visit. Visit? We can't afford it. You're already here but you're still letting your daughter run off to play with you? Yet he didn't come knocking on our door. He was obviously looking down on us. How can we afford to have them visit us? Lu Tongjia didn't like Su Qingsang. She didn't like Su Qingsang. Once she got into a dead end, it would be hard for her to get out. Why didn't you come as soon as you got off the plane? It's because there's a rule in Lin City that you can't visit your in-laws after noon. Since they can't come to the house, I'll take Qingsang, his mother and grandfather around in the afternoon. Grandpa, you don't mind such a small thing. Brother Yongfeng is here? Old Master Hua had met Old Master Li a few times before. That's good. We can have a good gathering tomorrow. Lu said. Lu said, Master Tongjia said. Lu said, I Tongjia. Qingsangji. Don't tell me you're hiding him? Lu Suhi. Lu. Qingsang he is. Li Tong. Su Tong. Lu. Tongjia I yang Tongjia I Tongjia Master. I Tongjia he. Hua Jinyao turned his eyes back to Old Master Hua. Dad, don't worry. They'll visit us tomorrow. Old Master Hua nodded. He had met Li Yongfeng once or twice and had a good impression of him. However, but didn't you tell me before? He glanced at Su Qingsang and didn't say the rest of the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Grandpa, Hua Jinyao interrupted. Hua Jinyao interrupted Old Master Hua. If you want to know about this, I'll talk to you in the study later. Now let Qingsang rest. She's been tired all day. Old Master Hua was about to nod, but Lu Tongjia couldn't help it. What can't be said here? Why do we have to talk in the study? He glanced at Su Qingsang and the look in his eyes was quite rude. Or is there something that you can't let others know about? Everyone in the living room had different expressions on their faces. Old Master Hua didn't look happy. Lu Lixin was there, and he didn't want to embarrass Lu Tongjia in front of the younger generation. As for the others, they all looked like they were watching a good show. Hua Mingguang didn't agree with his wife's decision, but he didn't say anything. Su Qingsang furrowed her brows slightly. Her pretty face was expressionless. She had already told Hua Jinyao about this on her way here today. She had told Hua Jinyao when she stayed in Lin City. She told him not to tell the Hua family about her identity for the time being. Su Qinghui was her biological father, but he wanted to take revenge on her biological mother and switch her identity? Su Qingsang didn't think it was embarrassing to tell the Hua family about her identity, and it didn't matter if they found out. However, Li Qinxue had been considerate of her. She didn't care about having a father like Su Qinghui, but it wasn't something to be proud of. If people knew that even her own family had set her up, she wouldn't be able to raise her head in her husband's family. She wanted to discuss an excuse. How should she tell Hua Jinyao's family? Su Qingsang had told Hua Jinyao about it on the way here. It was the same as what Li Qinxue said to the relatives of the Li family last time. It meant that they had been switched. As for how? Who would seriously investigate what had happened back then? Mom? Hua Jinyao's expression suddenly changed because of Lu Tongjia's words. There's nothing to hide. It's just that Qingsang is tired. I want her to go upstairs and rest. Tired? Why did you come back so late if you're tired? You didn't even come home for dinner? That's right. You only care about her parents and family now. Why would you care about us? Speaking of which, isn't she an illegitimate daughter? She was just an illegitimate daughter, but the Li family came to visit her eagerly. Visit what? Don't tell me that you want to get some benefits from this illegitimate daughter who clings to the Hua family? His words were really overbearing. Even Su Qingsang couldn't stand it anymore, not to mention old Master Hua. Her lips moved and she was about to refute, but Hua Jinyao pressed her hand down. Mom, are you done talking? If you are, I'll take Qingsang upstairs. As for those shameful things, you also said that it's shameful. Naturally, we can only talk about it in a shameful place. You? Lu Tongjia was angry with Hua Jinyao. Her face suddenly darkened. I'm not finished. I just want to know, do you still care about this family? Do you still care about me, your mother? Chapter 466. Lu Tongjia wasn't someone who didn't know anything about the company. Speaking of which, Jinyao, you've taken care of the Li family a lot, haven't you? Why did I hear that you handed over many projects to the Li Corporation, and some of them were even within the scope of the Li Corporation's business? Her voice was soft, but her words were sharp. He stared at Su Qingsang with no trace of politeness. Now that they've tasted it, they want to get even more benefits, so they came here eagerly. Is that so? Mrs. Hua. Su Qingsang couldn't help but speak before Hua Jinyao could. She didn't call Lu Tongjia mom. She knew that Lu Tongjia didn't want to acknowledge her, so she didn't force her. Sorry, I don't like it when you talk about my family like that. My mom and grandpa came to visit. Was sincere. As an in-law and an elder of mine who is already married to Hu Jinyao, it's normal for me to visit him. I don't have any ulterior motives. As for the benefits you mentioned, sorry, I don't see it either. Although the Li Corporation couldn't be compared to the Chanyu Group, it had a good reputation in Lin City over the years. What's more, a powerful dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. The Chanyu Group was indeed impressive. However, after Hu Jinyao went to Lin City, the Li family also used their advantages to provide Chanyu Group with more convenience than other companies. I don't understand why you, Mrs. Hua, are saying that we're taking advantage of Chanyu Group? Of course, you can choose not to cooperate with the Li Corporation. But I believe that in all of Lin City, you won't be able to find a more suitable partner for Chanyu Group than the Li Corporation. Because our company can be said to be the most capable in the entire Lin City. Finally, I know that you don't like me. You think that I'm not good enough for him after marrying Hu Jinyao. But I am me and my parents are my parents. I can't help it if you don't like me. But I want to tell you that my parents are the same as all parents in the world. They just want their children to live well and be happy. So, they are not as filthy as you think. He finished saying all this in one breath. He ignored the gazes of the other people in the living room. She turned to look at old Master Hua. I'm sorry, Grandpa. It's my fault that I didn't go home the first time I came back. I'll be more careful next time. I'm fine. These are all trivial matters. Looking at Su Qingsang, old Master Hua couldn't be more satisfied. She really had the shadow of his old wife. She looked delicate and pretty, but who knew that she had a temper? He had a temper, but he wasn't impulsive. Don't be rash. His grandson had good foresight and did not misjudge him. Lu Tongjia was rendered speechless by Su Qingsang's words. Her lips moved and she wanted to say something, but old Master Hua interrupted her. You must be tired. Go and rest early. Let's talk about it later. Okay, Grandpa. Su Qingsang was really tired, so she didn't stand on ceremony with him. I'll go upstairs first. He glanced at Hua Mingguang and the others and bowed slightly. Good night, Dad. Good night, Uncle. Good night, everyone. After saying this, she gracefully turned around and went upstairs. Even if the way she walked was not as elegant as the daughter of a rich family, her aura was definitely not inferior. Old Master Hua couldn't be more satisfied. He touched his chin and motioned for Hu Jinyao to go upstairs with Su Qingsang. Wait. Lu Tongjia didn't look pleased. Not only had she been humiliated by her son, but she had also been humiliated by her daughter-in-law. How could she let this go? Hu Jinyao, stay here and make things clear. Hu Jinyao stopped and looked into Lu Tongjia's eyes. Mom, what else do you want to hear? I think Qingsang is quite right. Hu Jinyao, you have a wife now and don't want your mother anymore, do you? Hu Jinyao looked up at her and said, I didn't mean that. If you have to think that way, there's nothing I can do. Grandpa. Hu Jinyao looked at old Master Hua and said, I'll go upstairs first. His attitude of not taking Lu Tongjia seriously made her even more dissatisfied. Before she could lose her temper, Hu Jinyao had already left. Lu Lixin saw this and said, All right, Auntie. I don't think you should be angry. I think maybe my cousin is understanding that my cousin-in-law is tired today. Don't be angry. It would have been better if he hadn't said this, but his words were obviously adding fuel to the fire. Lu Tongjia was Hu Jinyao's mother, but Hu Jinyao didn't understand her, but Su Qingsang? All right. It's getting late. You should all go back and rest. Hearing old Master Hua's words, the others stood up. Some went home and some went upstairs to rest. Lu Tongjia felt like she was suffocating. She couldn't get out, nor could she get out. Annie, I'm leaving. I'll come and see you another day. Lu Lixin was infuriated. However, facing old Master Hua's penetrating gaze, he was a little scared and quickly left. Lu Tongjia felt a headache coming on. Hua Mingguang glanced at her, and in the end, she could only follow him upstairs. Upstairs, Su Qingsang was lying on the ground as soon as she entered the room. Her luggage had already been carried upstairs. She was really tired. She thought that Hu Jinyao would stay downstairs for a long time, but he came up a few minutes later. She sat up immediately and asked, How was it? Your mother didn't scold you, did she? No. It didn't matter if she scolded him. He had been scolded many times over the years. Su Qingsang looked at him guiltily and said, I'm sorry. I really couldn't help it. It was one thing for Lu Tongjia to scold her, but she had to drag Li Qianxue into it. Li Qianxue didn't have the intention to scold Li Qianxue in the first place. If she didn't refute Lu Tongjia's words, she wouldn't be able to hold her head high in the future. It has nothing to do with you. Hu Jingyao walked up to her and rubbed the top of her head. I think you're right. Su Qingsang smiled. She was a little embarrassed. Because of Hu Jingyao's unprincipled attitude of standing on her side. Hu Jingyao. Yes. Thank you. Hu Jingyao's response was to flick her forehead. Su Qingsang shrank her head back in pain. It hurts. His hand was very strong. With just a flick, her forehead was already red. Okay? Let me see. Hu Jingyao found that her forehead was really red, so he kissed it. Then he reached out and rubbed it. Don't think too much. My mother's temper is like that. If you don't like it, we can live outside. We can come back to see Grandpa on the weekends. Really? To be honest, Su Qingsang didn't want to stay with Lu Tongjia every day. But I can't for the next few days. I'll report to work in a few days. Okay. Hu Jingyao thought of something else. The first hospital of Rong City is about a 15-minute drive from our company. It's on the way. I happen to have an apartment nearby. When the time comes, I'll get someone to tidy up the apartment and we'll live there. Okay. Su Qingsang was really touched by Hu Jingyao's words. Most men hoped that their wives would compromise in front of their mothers. Fortunately, Hu Jingyao didn't ask for that. Hu Jingyao. In fact, if possible, I'd like to get along with your mother. But the premise is that she has to be reasonable. Don't you think so? Hu Jingyao narrowed his eyes and looked at her. You've become bold, haven't you? How dare you say that my mother is unreasonable? Su Qingsang blinked her eyes innocently. Hu Jingyao suddenly reached out and scratched her armpit a few times. Su Qingsang laughed and fell on the bed. I don't want it anymore. Her body curled up. Hu Jingyao didn't want to stop. She was afraid of tickles, so she couldn't help but want to avoid it. Hu Jingyao looked at her blushing face and couldn't help but lean on her. Su Qingsang stopped laughing. She looked at Hu Jingyao and blushed. What are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? Hu Jingyao's eyes were deep. Honey, we've been separated for a few days. Yes, not a few days. Su Qingsang swallowed. I haven't showered yet. Get up first. It's okay. Let's shower together. Hu Jingyao's hand reached for the hem of her clothes. We've showered together anyway. Su Qingsang was even more embarrassed. Before the desire came, she thought of something else. Not that, right? Here. Su Qingsang put her hands in front of his chest. Her breath was a little unstable. I'm in danger these days. Yes. Hu Jingyao put his mouth close to her ear and whispered, I specially went to buy it. Su Qingsang blinked. You planned it, didn't you? Yes. Hu Jingyao admitted it openly. I wanted to plot against you. He sealed her mouth with a kiss so that Su Qingsang couldn't speak. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. That night was naturally full of passion. It was a little late when Su Qingsang got up in the morning. She hadn't had a good rest during this period of time. Li Qinshui really wanted to accompany her. The mother and daughter slept together every day. Li Qinshui always had endless questions to ask Su Qingsang. She liked to listen to Su Qingsang talk about her past and wanted to know more about her. As a result, Su Qingsang went to bed very late every day but got up very early. She turned over on the bed and faintly felt that her body was uncomfortable. She gritted her teeth and frowned. That bastard Hu Jingyao didn't know how to control himself. She didn't see him in the room. Su Qingsang looked at the time and quickly got up. In the study on the second floor, Hu Jingyao told old Master Hua about Su Qingsang's background. He didn't have anything to hide in front of his grandfather. In fact, old Master Hua was almost a smart person. When he came to visit his in-laws, his mother and grandfather came, but his father didn't come. What would people think? Old Master Hua felt that something was wrong when he heard it yesterday. Today he understood. I see. Chapter 467. Hu Jingyao thought of what had happened before Su Qingsang and Li Qinshui met. For more than 20 years she knew that her daughter was by her side, but she didn't acknowledge her. It's understandable that she was agitated. That's why I asked her to stay with her mother for a few days. Grandpa, if you want to blame someone for this, blame me. I don't blame you. Old Master Hu didn't expect such a twist. Speaking of which, since that's the reason, they still came to visit in such a hurry. The fact that they're in such a hurry to visit shows how much they value their daughter. Of course. Hu Jingyao nodded and thought of what Su Qingsang had said yesterday. Qingsang's mother and grandfather just acknowledged her. In fact, they were very reluctant to let her go. But they also took our family situation into consideration, so they allowed her to come back so quickly. Speaking of which, the Li family was already very considerate of Su Qingsang. They didn't come yesterday because there's a custom in Lin City that we can't visit in-laws in the afternoon. Although we don't have that custom, it shows their respect for our family and the importance they attach to this marriage. That's right. Old Master Hua nodded. Don't worry. I know about it. Hua Jinyao breathed a sigh of relief. Grandpa, in fact, Qingsang didn't want me to tell my family. Before that, she didn't want to acknowledge her mother. It was really because of a series of coincidences. The result is like this. Qingsang also thought about acknowledging Xiang Kaiping and living with her for the rest of her life. If Li Qianxue hadn't come back when we came back a few days ago, these things wouldn't have happened. Jinyao, you don't have to explain. I know what you mean. I also know that your mother is a person. In fact, she is very subjective and arbitrary most of the time. But don't worry, you don't have to take what she said to heart. Hua Jinyao nodded. He didn't take it to heart. In fact, he was afraid that Lu Tongjiao would keep blaming Su Qingsang for not coming back with him for the new year. He could ignore it. After all, he had known Lu Tongjiao's attitude towards him for so many years. But he didn't want Su Qingsang to be blamed by Lu Tongjiao for this matter in the future. I know that you're afraid that your mother will bully Qingsang in the future. Don't worry. Your mother is just a sharp-tongued person. In fact, she can't do anything. If that day really comes, I will stop her. Grandpa, thank you. Without old Master Hua, there would be more problems in the family. All right, you brat, you don't have to be so polite with me. Old Master Hua looked at Hua Jinyao. His eyes lit up. If you really want to thank me, then I'll thank you. Give birth to a fat great-grandson with Qingsang as soon as possible. I'm very happy. Don't worry. Sooner or later. Old Master, the Li family is here. While they were talking, Uncle Zhang came upstairs and told Old Master Hua and Hua Jinyao that the Li family had arrived. Hua Jinyao and Old Master Hua didn't waste any time and quickly went downstairs. Yang Wenshang was the one who went to pick them up. After picking them up, he called Hua Jinyao. As soon as they entered the courtyard, Hua Jinyao went downstairs. Li Yongfeng had met Old Master Hua a few times many years ago. After that, the two of them developed their own careers in different places. This was the first time they had seen each other in decades. Brother Yongfeng. Old Master Hua was very friendly when he saw Old Master Li. As soon as Old Master Li and Li Qianxue entered the door, he took the initiative to greet them. I didn't expect that the two of us would have a chance to become in-laws. Isn't that so? Old Master Li was also quite emotional. When I heard that Qingsang married into your family, I said that she was a lucky girl. If you ask me, Jinyao is more lucky. Old Master Hua wasn't being polite, but in Old Master Li's eyes, it was just being polite. However, he wasn't being polite at all. I also think that Qingsang is very good. If she hadn't married Jinyao so early, I really wouldn't want to let her go so early. Old Master Hua had heard Hua Jinyao's words just now, so he naturally knew what Old Master Li meant. Ah, of course. If I had a granddaughter as good as Qingsang, I wouldn't want her to marry too early. Is this Qingsang's mother? As Old Master Hua spoke, his eyes turned to Li Qianxue. Li Qianxue stepped forward, smiled at Old Master Hua and reached out at the same time. Hello, Old Master Hua. I'm Li Qianxue. I've heard Dad mention you a long time ago. Today I see that you really live up to your reputation. You're too kind. Old Master Hua led the two of them to the living room and sat down. Li Qianxue handed over the gifts she had picked before. Look, it's good that you're here. Why do you need to give me gifts? Old Master Hua asked Hua Jinyao to accept the gifts. Li Qianxue hadn't seen her daughter for a day, so she couldn't help but look around. Qingsang came back yesterday and went to bed a little late. She's still sleeping now. Hua Jinyao explained. Li Qianxue couldn't help but take another look at him. In the past, Qingsang slept late, but she didn't wake up late. He must be tired, right? Grandpa? Mom? As they spoke, Su Qingsang came downstairs. Qingsang, look at you. Li Qianxue was naturally happy to see her daughter, but she still had to say, why did you sleep so late? You're already married, so you shouldn't sleep late. I know, Mom. It's okay. Qingsang just got home yesterday. It's normal for her to sleep a little longer when she's tired. Old Master Hua tried to smooth things over. He looked at Su Qingsang and said in a friendly manner, Qingsang used to be very diligent. She would wake up early every day to practice boxing with me. That's because you think too highly of her. Li Qianxue reached out to Su Qingsang and gestured for her to sit down. Su Qingsang was about to step forward when Hua Jinyao suddenly grabbed her hand. Mom, Ching Sang hasn't had breakfast yet. Let him have his breakfast first, then come back. You child. Why didn't you say that you didn't have breakfast? Li Qinshua's heart ached. Go eat. Let's have a chat with old Master Hua. Okay. Su Qingsang glanced at Hua Jinyao, squeezed his palm and went to the dining room. After she left, Li Qinshu looked at old Master Hua and said, Look at this child. She's so happy to see us. She even forgot to eat. Mom, don't worry. This is an accident. I usually prepare breakfast for her. Hua Jinyao was talking about the time when the two of them lived together in Lin City. Li Qinshu also knew that Hua Jinyao would take good care of his daughter. There was nothing to worry about. Speaking of which, Ching Sang has really troubled you to take care of her. It's no trouble at all. I'm Ching Sang's husband. It's my duty to take care of her. You're her husband. It's your duty to take care of her. She's your wife. Isn't it also her duty to take care of you? A somewhat cold voice sounded, accompanied by the sound of footsteps. Lu Tongjia went downstairs and glared at Hua Jinyao. He really forgot his mother after having a wife. She had never heard him mention taking care of his parents in his life. He was willing to take care of a woman in his hands, afraid that she would be hungry and cold. As soon as she appeared, old Master Li and Li Qinshu both looked at Lu Tongjia. Her words were too rude. Li Qinshu's brows slightly furrowed, but she didn't act up immediately. That's the reason. Since Ching Sang is married to Hua Jinyao, the two of them naturally have to take care of each other. Take care of each other? Lu Tongjia sneered. I didn't see that. I saw that Hua Jinyao has always been taking care of your daughter, right? You said he wouldn't come back for the new year. What did he say he would take care of you? He said he would come back for the new year, but he didn't come back. It seems to be to accompany you. I don't understand, and now I want to ask. Is it the rule in Lin City that a married daughter is the same as if she's not married? She can do whatever she wants? Doesn't she have to worry about what her husband's family thinks? As soon as she appeared, Li Qinshu roughly guessed her identity. What she said now made Li Qinshu even more certain. You're my in-law, right? Knowing that this was her daughter's mother-in-law, Li Qinshu had a faint smile on her face. There was a bit of alienation in her smile, but it was also quite polite. That's what you're saying. But I think that even if this daughter gets married, it's still the flesh that fell from her mother's body. It doesn't make sense for her to care about what her husband's family thinks and ignore her mother's family after getting married. I think you also have a mother's family, don't you? It's not like you don't care when something happens to your mother's family. You just treat yourself as a member of the Hua family, not a daughter of your mother's family. Don't you think so? Now I finally know who Su Qingsang's sharp tongue resembles. As expected, like mother like daughter. Lu Tongjia had no words to refute, so she could only retort. Tongjia. Old Master Hua couldn't listen to it anymore. What are you talking about? Dad. You don't have to protect outsiders like this. I just want to ask, did I say something wrong? Did Jinyao marry Su Qingsang because they were from a higher position? Has Jinyao been accommodating Su Qingsang since they got married? Jinyao went so far away from Lin City to develop his career for her. Then he stayed there and didn't come back. I actually didn't know that I had married a wife and brought her into the family. Or did my son become a live-in son-in-law? Tongjia. Don't talk too much. Old Master Hua saw that Li Qinshu didn't look too good, so his voice sank. She wanted Lu Tongjia to stop talking. Lu Tongjia didn't want to let it go so easily. She still wanted to speak, but Li Qinshu, who was beside her, couldn't bear to listen anymore. She had always known that Hua Jinyao was good to his daughter, but she also believed that Su Qingsang was good to him when she didn't know it. After all, feelings were mutual. However, Lu Tongjia made it sound like everything was Su Qingsang's fault. When she recognized Su Qingsang, she had thought that she wouldn't let Su Qingsang suffer. This would be even more so. Since my in-laws are so dissatisfied with my daughter, why don't you go ahead and take care of her? Why don't I bring her back and educate her properly? Chapter 468. Li Qinshu's words were very blunt. In her opinion, the Hua family was a good family, but the Li family wasn't bad either. Moreover, she really didn't like Lu Tongjia's aggressive attitude. Before she acknowledged Su Qingsang, she had thought that with Su Qingsang's background, she would probably be despised if she married into the Hua family. At that time she was in the mood to watch a play. Now that she had acknowledged Su Qingsang as her daughter, she couldn't bear to see others despise her daughter. Not only her, but old Master Li also couldn't stand it anymore. His daughter was married to the Hua family, not sold to them. Moreover, the situation at that time was special, so it was understandable that Su Qingsang stayed. She didn't say that she didn't want to go back to Rong City on purpose. Lu Tongjia's words were really disgusting. However, old Master Li's status was different, so it was not appropriate for him to argue with the younger generation. However, Li Qianxue was different. She could retaliate. What? Are you threatening me? Lu Tongjia didn't expect such an attitude from Li Qianxue. Her face darkened. Fine. I beg, Mom. Hua Jinyao interrupted Lu Tongjia. His deep eyes stared straight at Lu Tongjia's face. Without saying anything else, he just stared at her. Lu Tongjia felt a little scared under her son's stare. However, he was unwilling to admit defeat just like that. His expression darkened. What? Am I wrong? Lu Tongjia's expression was unfriendly. I don't like a woman who only cares about her family, not her husband's family. Tongjia. Old Master Hua's face darkened. He didn't expect Lu Tongjia to be so rude to the Li family. Am I wrong? Lu Tongjia glanced at the father and daughter of the Li family. She's just an illegitimate daughter, but she makes herself seem like the daughter of a rich family. What is this? Or is it because they see our family status and want to get close to us? Is that why you're doing this on purpose? Do you think you can scare me? Isn't it? Su Qingsang is my biological daughter. She is not an illegitimate daughter. Li Qianxue looked at Lu Tongjia and said righteously, I only found out about it recently. Back when I was in the hospital, something happened that caused my daughter to be switched. Qingsang was his biological daughter. She didn't return to Rong City immediately because she wanted to reunite with me. But in your eyes, it's just spending 2 more days with me. How did it become a heinous crime? She's your daughter? That's right. Li Qianxue nodded. Her voice was not at all polite. Qingsang is my biological daughter. As far as I am concerned, she is the best in the world. If my in-laws don't like her, then it doesn't matter. I just recognized her, and I can't wait for her to stay by my side for a while longer. Lu Tongjia sneered. She didn't believe it. In her eyes, Li Qianxue and Hua Jinyao were here because Su Qingsang had connections with the Hua family. Therefore, in order to obtain more benefits, they were willing to lower their status and recognize an illegitimate daughter as their own daughter. That's great. Anyway, it's not like no one wants our Jinyao. Take your daughters with you. Jinyao will naturally find someone better. Mom. Lu Tongjia. The last sentence was said by Hua Mingguang. No one knew when he had arrived. He looked at Lu Tongjia with disapproval. Li Qianxue couldn't take it lying down. She stood up and looked at Lu Tongjia. Is what my in-law said true? If it's true, then we'll take Qingsang with us today. Of course, enough. Old Master Hua couldn't listen to it anymore. He glared at Lu Tongjia. Sit back down. If you don't feel comfortable here, you can go back to your room. Dad, are you kicking me out? No one is kicking you out. Old Master Hua's expression was quite unpleasant. I just want to tell you that if you really don't know how to talk, you don't have to. Lu Tongjia was so angry that her chest heaved violently. Can I say it? He went out and told me that he was getting married. Did he ask for my permission? Did I agree? Mom? Hua Jinyao finally spoke. He looked at Lu Tongjia with a complicated look in his eyes and said in a low voice, I'm the one who's getting married, and I'm also the one who's going to spend the rest of my life with Qingsang. I don't think I need your permission to marry anyone. You've grown up, so you don't take me seriously anymore. Am I right? Tongjia. Hua Mingguang said, that's enough. Sit down. Do you want people to laugh at you? He glanced at Hua Jinyao again. Don't talk too much. He turned to old Master Hua and said, You're Uncle Li, aren't you? I've heard my father mention you. Old Master Li's attitude was a little cold. After what happened just now, both he and Li Qianxue could see that Su Qingsang might not be as good as she appeared to be in this family. In-laws, my wife is a straightforward person. Sometimes she speaks too directly. Don't take it to heart. In fact, we couldn't be more satisfied with this marriage. Don't worry, it's not like what you think. Hua Mingguang was the only one who believed what he said. No one else believed it at all. Li Qianxue was also experienced. Hearing that, she smiled faintly. It's good that you're satisfied. We're also satisfied with Jinyao. But it's also because Jinyao has been telling us how satisfied his family is with this marriage. These young people don't understand. If a marriage can't be blessed by parents and family, then two people won't necessarily be happy together. Don't you think so? Lu Tongjia wanted to lose her temper again because of her words, but under old Master Hua's glare, she had to remain silent. But the more he did so, the more uncomfortable she felt. the more she felt suffocated. That's true, so we are very optimistic about Jinyao and Qingsang's marriage. Hua Mingguang was lying through his teeth, but no one exposed him at this time. I've talked to old Master Li before. We're going to hold a new wedding for Jinyao and Qingsang in Rong City. On one hand, it's to let our relatives recognize them, and on the other hand, it's to let everyone know Qingsang's identity. In the future, we can avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. As soon as he said this, Li Qianxue and old Master Li looked much better. After all, Su Qingsang was already married to Hua Jinyao, and the two of them seemed to have a good relationship. They didn't really want to take Su Qingsang away. That's a good idea. Speaking of which, we have some partners in Rong City and we also have some relatives. When the time comes, we can call all of them to make it more lively. Hua Jinyao frowned. He obviously didn't accept this idea. There's no need. Su Qingsang didn't know when she came out of breakfast, but she happened to hear the last two words. She walked up to Hua Jinyao and stood still. She smiled at him and turned to face Li Qianxue. Mom, Grandpa. Grandpa, Dad, there's no need for a wedding. Jinyao and I are not people who pursue those external forms. We can still hold another wedding. Old Master Hua thought a little more. After all, the Hua family is a little famous in Rong City. We should let them all come and meet our eldest granddaughter-in-law. Grandpa. Su Qingsang felt tired after holding a wedding. If she had to hold another one, she would be even more tired. Thank you, Grandpa. I know you feel bad for me. But I really don't think it's necessary. If you really don't think it's appropriate, why don't you pick a time and invite all your relatives over for dinner? Introduce them and we'll get to know each other. Then it's decided. Hua Mingguang finally made the decision. It just so happens that your great-uncle has retired and is in Rong City. And your great-aunt. Pick a time and invite everyone to dinner and get to know each other. Since you're here, stay for a few more days. I heard from Jinyao that you're staying in a hotel now? How can we do that? I think it's better to let Wenchang move your luggage over and stay directly at our house. Yes. Anyway, there are guest rooms at home. I'll have someone clean them up later. Hua Mingguang seized the opportunity and said. Old Master Li smiled. There's no need to stay here. We will also feel uncomfortable. Anyway, Qianxue has already bought a villa. It's not far from here. When we came yesterday, she already had it cleaned up. We'll move in later. Well, you're too polite. Hua Mingguang was a little helpless. If others find out, they will say that we're not good hosts. It's okay. It's not far from here. It'll be convenient for us to come and visit you. Li Qianxue would not live at the Hua family's house. She finally realized that the other members of the Hua family might seem nice, but Lu Tongjia, Su Qingsang's mother-in-law, was really not easy to get along with. She glanced at Su Qingsang. She was not liked by her mother-in-law as soon as she married into the family. She was afraid that there would be some twists and turns in the future. She only hoped that Hua Jinyao could be a little more responsible and protect her. Lu Tongjia watched the group of people discussing excitedly and sat alone on the side angrily. She felt that she could not suppress the anger in her heart. She glanced coldly at Su Qingsang, stood up and turned to leave. Her abrupt movement attracted everyone present to look in her direction. Hua Mingguang watched Lu Tongjia leave just like that. There was some disapproval in his eyes, but it was unlikely that he would embarrass her in front of the Li family. I'm sorry, my wife is a little short-tempered. I've made a fool of myself. It's okay. Li Qianxue didn't pay attention to Lu Tongjia anymore. There is always a process for a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law to accept each other. You'll get better as you slowly interact with them. That's right. Hua Mingguang could only agree at this moment. Qingsang is a good child. Jinyao's mother just hasn't come around yet. When she comes around, she will accept Qingsang. That's good. Li Qianxue looked at Su Qingsang. She didn't mind letting the Hua family know some things at all. Qingsang is my daughter, but I haven't been able to acknowledge her because of the wrong baby. Now that I've acknowledged her, I want to give her the best in the world. I'm worried that she's not doing well and won't tell me. So it's inevitable that I'm a little nervous. Please don't laugh at me, in-law. Chapter 469. Old Master Hua's words were a guarantee. Li Qianxue and Old Master Li were relieved. Without Lu Tongjia, the rest was much smoother. Old Master Hua and Hua Mingguang stayed at the Hua mansion for lunch. Lu Tongjia went out and didn't come back. After lunch, the father and daughter couldn't stay any longer. They refused Old Master Hua's offer to let them stay and asked Su Qingsang to accompany them out for a walk. At this time, Rong City was almost covered in snow. That was to say, looking at the snow. Fortunately, old Master Li and Li Qianxue didn't care what they were looking at. They only cared about who was accompanying them. They originally just wanted Su Qingsang to spend more time with them. At this point, Su Qingsang could still do it. After taking Su Qingsang to see the villa they bought for her, old Master Li and Li Qianxue stayed in the hotel for another day before moving in. It was about a 15-minute drive from the Hua mansion. It could be considered to be in the same villa area. If Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao wanted to live here, they would be able to live a good life. Then it would be convenient for them to return to the Hua mansion. Hua Jinyao had something to do at the company today, so Su Qingsang accompanied them. Li Qianxue put away the things and took Su Qingsang to tour the small villa. Qingsang, you said that you don't like houses that are too big. This is not big. The 3-story villa has 3 halls and 7 rooms. There is also a living room. It's enough for you two to live here. There is a small garden in front and 2 garages in the back. I also bought you a car. Li Qianxue pointed to the back as she spoke. There are 2 cars. You can drive whichever you want. It will be more convenient for you to go to work. Mom? Thank you. She was so thoughtful that Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. Don't thank me. You just like to be polite. Li Qianxue patted her hand. I have nothing else to give you. No, you have already given me a lot. She didn't mean property. Li Qianxue gave her life and brought her into this world. Before they met, she didn't feel too sad for her. At least he had grown up safely. After reuniting with him, everything she did was from her own point of view. Su Qingsang originally wanted to be close to Li Qianxue, but now she was even more touched. Qingsang. Li Qianxue was actually a little worried. I observed your mother-in-law the other day. She's not easy to get along with. I'm just afraid that you'll suffer losses in the future. Mom? Don't worry. My mother-in-law only looks fierce on the surface. Actually, she can't do anything to me. After all, the rest of the family is on my side. As long as old Master Hua and Hua Jinyao were on her side, she wouldn't be afraid even if Lu Tongjiao was dissatisfied with her. Li Qianxue nodded, but she was still worried. He patted Su Qingsang's hand. That's for the best. But why do I feel that Hua Jinyao doesn't have a good relationship with his mother? It wasn't because of Su Qingsang, but because Hua Jinyao and Lu Tongjia had never been on good terms. No matter what, Li Qianxue was someone who had been in the business world for more than 20 years. She still had a good eye for things like this. I think so. Su Qingsang actually noticed it too. Hua Jinyao doesn't have a good relationship with his mother. It's not because of me. Didn't you ask why they don't have a good relationship? I didn't ask. Su Qingsang wanted to ask, but Hua Jinyao obviously didn't want to talk about it, so she didn't ask. You have to ask about this kind of thing, don't you? Li Qianxue was worried, so she couldn't help but think too much. If you don't find out the reason, what if you accidentally step on the line between Hua Jinyao and his mother next time? I'm afraid Hua Jinyao will blame you, right? I don't think so. Su Qingsang was actually very curious. It's not important. I'll ask him about it later. Li Qianxue nodded and thought of something else. By the way, will you still go to work after we leave? Yes. Su Qingsang was about to tell Li Qianxue about this. Before I came here, my supervisor, Director Zhang Qiubai, wrote a recommendation letter for me. She has also told the people at the first hospital of the city. I'm going to report for work tomorrow. Tomorrow? Li Qianxue suddenly couldn't accept it. Tomorrow? So soon? I'm just going to report for work, Su Qingsang explained lightly. As for the time of work, it has to be decided. There should be people in the department. I came here suddenly, so they have to think about how to arrange for me, right? How to arrange? I believe in your ability. Li Qianxue suddenly thought of something else. I also know a few hospital directors. If you're not used to it, you can tell me directly. I think you can go directly to the hospital opened by my friend. Mom? Su Qingsang put her hand on her forehead. Why did all of them want her to go through the back door? Don't worry. Since you believe in your daughter's ability, you will know that no matter where I am, I can do well. Li Qianxue nodded. I believe you. Let's go and find your grandfather. Okay. When Su Qingsang returned to the Hua family, she heard that the Hua family had set a dinner date for tomorrow. This time, not only would Hua Jinyao's great-uncle Hua Yangyuan and his children come, but also his great-aunt Hua Yangxiu would come with her children. When she returned to her room at night, Su Qingsang finally had time to ask Hua Jinyao about his relatives. She had almost forgotten about it after hearing it last time. Honey, are you nervous? Hua Jinyao held her body on his lap. Looking at her serious face, he couldn't help but want to laugh. Don't be silly. I'm serious. She had been with Li Qinxue for the past few days and had listened to a lot of her advice. If she had only married into an ordinary family with a simple population and a simple environment, she wouldn't have had to do this. However, she married Hu Jiniao and the Huo family was a large family. Not to mention that Hu Jiniao was the eldest grandson of the Huo family. Just as Li Qinxue said, she would have to bear the responsibility of her position in the future. Before that, let her start by understanding the relatives of the Huo family. I told you before, my grandfather has a biological brother and a biological sister. In fact, the old man also had some collateral relatives such as cousins and so on. However, they were all in their hometown so they didn't have much contact. My great-uncle Hu Yangyuan only had 2 sons. Now both of his sons are high-ranking officials. Hu Yangyuan's 2 children were called Hu Mingfan and Hu Mingqi. The 2 brothers had inherited his acumen and ambition in the political arena. Now they were developing well. Stop, wait a minute, speak slowly. I can't remember. Chapter 470. How is it complicated? Hu Jiniao took her hand and said, It's not complicated at all. You say it's complicated? I haven't talked about my great-aunt's family yet. Hu Jiniao squeezed Su Qingsang's hand. He was afraid that she couldn't match him. He took out his phone and showed her the photos he had taken earlier. Hu Mingfan had a son and a daughter, while Hu Mingqi had 2 sons. They were all of the same generation as Hu Jiniao, and none of them were married yet. His great-aunt, Hu Yangxiu, was married to the commander of a military region. She was the youngest of grandfather Hu's 3 siblings, but she had 2 sons and a daughter. She only gave birth to her youngest son when she was nearly 40 years old. As a result, her son was about the same age as Hu Jiniao. Her uncle and aunt were already married. My aunt is also married to a soldier and is currently with my uncle in the garrison. His eldest uncle was also stationed in the army. He had a pair of twin sons. He was only 15 years old this year, so he could be considered one of the younger generation in the family. Stop. I'm dizzy. Even if there were photos with so many people, it would be impossible to remember them all. Hu Jiniao, can I wait until the party? Remember to remind me when the time comes? Hu Jiniao pinched Su Qingsang's nose. If you can't remember, then don't. I will remind you when the time comes. Yes. Su Qingsang nodded. So many relatives, including your cousins. They're not in the same place as you, so you probably don't have many opportunities to interact with them, right? Not many. My great-uncle used to be a high-ranking official. I used to go to his house for summer vacations, but it was boring. Because he was very busy, there were many people coming and going in his house every day. After that, I didn't like going anymore. What about grand-aunt? Grand-aunt? My great-aunt and her husband lived in the army, and it was not a place that ordinary people could enter. But I've been there a few times. He has a good relationship with my 2 uncles. All right. Hu Jiniao suddenly turned over and laid on top of Su Qingsang's body. My eldest uncle had a pair of twin sons. Should we also try our best? Give birth to a pair of twins. It would be even better if they were a boy and a girl. Su Qingsang patted him and said, In your dreams. Twins? Whether to give birth to 1 or 2, whether to give birth to a boy or a girl, how could she decide? You don't believe me? Hu Jiniao put his forehead against hers. You don't believe in my abilities? Don't? Su Qingsang hadn't decided if she wanted to have a child so early. Hu Jiniao turned her body around and trapped her firmly in his arms. You don't believe me, do you? Looks like I've been too relaxed with you these days. It's time to let you know how powerful I am. Hu Jiniao. Su Qingsang twisted her body and tried to dodge, but Hu Jiniao's hand was like an iron clamp. She couldn't break free at all. Before she could react, her lips were already sealed by him. His words disappeared from her lips just like that. However, in the end, Hu Jiniao still got up to get the condoms from the drawer. Under Su Qingsang's surprised gaze, he kissed her earlobe. Honey, if you want to give birth, then give birth. If you don't want to, we won't. Su Qingsang's eyes were watery. She suddenly leaned over and kissed Hu Jiniao on the cheek. Honey, you're finished. I won't let you go tonight. Su Qingsang blushed, but she still fought back. Okay. I'd like to see how you won't let me go. Compared with the enthusiasm in Hu Jiniao's room, the atmosphere in Hu Mingguang and Lu Tongjia's room was much colder. Hu Mingguang looked at Lu Tongjia with a look of disapproval. Uncle and aunt will come the day after tomorrow. How long do you want to be angry? These days, as long as Su Qingsang was at home, Lu Tongjia would not be at home. It didn't matter if it happened once or twice, but it would take a long time. Old Master Huo would probably be dissatisfied. He was angry. Lu Tongjia had already taken a shower and was applying skincare products to her face. Her expression was not good. I just don't like her. What's wrong? No matter how much you don't like her, she's already with Hu Jinyao. Why do I have to what? Her biggest mistake was that she shouldn't have been with Hu Jinyao. Lu Tongjia put down the bottle in her hand and turned to Hu Mingguang. Did you see how hard Hu Jinyao was protecting her? Do you know how angry I was? Tongjia. As her husband, Hu Mingguang certainly knew what she was thinking. It's been so long and the child has grown up. No. Lu Tongjia's eyes suddenly turned red. I can't. Hu Mingguang, I'm telling you, I'll never be able to get over this. Hu Mingguang frowned. He got up and walked to her. Tongjia, just let it go. I said I can't let it go. I can't do it. Lu Tongjia suddenly grabbed his hand. What? Why can he act like nothing happened? Marry a wife, have children, and live happily? What? Hu Mingguang gently patted Lu Tongjia and looked at her like a little girl. But he's your son after all. Your biological son. What can you do if you don't let it go? Lu Tongjia pushed his hand away and stared at Hu Mingguang with tears on her face. You let it go? You can let it go? I'm telling you. I can't. I'll never let it go. In my heart. Hu Jinyao will always be a sinner. He let me down. He'll never let me down. Hu Mingguang sighed in his heart. He knew that Lu Tongjia couldn't let it go. He put his hand on her shoulder. Tongjia, it's been so many years. Hu Jinyao has grown up. He's also sensible. No matter how much you hate him, it can't change the fact that he's your son. How can a mother and son hate each other overnight? I don't have a son like that. Lu Tongjia's voice was filled with hatred. I don't have a son who has no conscience. Don't try to persuade me. I'm telling you, I'll never forgive him in my life. Not ever. Lu Tongjia's soft cry echoed in the room. Hu Mingguang didn't speak. He looked helpless and slightly sad. Su Qingsang almost couldn't get up the next morning. When she got up, she looked at the bruises on her body and cursed in her heart. She felt that it was all her fault. After all, if she hadn't done that, Hu Jinyao wouldn't have gone crazy. She tidied up and went downstairs. Hu Jinyao had already gone to work. Old Master Hu saw her coming down and waved at her. Qingsang, are you going to the hospital today? Yes. Su Qingsang nodded. City First Hospital. Let Lin drive you there. No need. I'll drive there myself. Li Qinshue bought 2 cars, one of which was a sports car. Su Qingsang naturally didn't want to drive it. However, she had already tested the other SUV yesterday. Its performance was good in all aspects. She planned to drive it to work on weekdays. It just snowed here, so some roads might be a little slippery. Southerners might not be used to driving here. If you drive by yourself, remember to be careful. Got it, Grandpa. I'll be careful. Su Qingsang was very grateful to Old Master Hua. He really treated her as his granddaughter-in-law. After leaving the house, Su Qingsang turned on the GPS. The scheduled check-in time was 10:30. There was still time for her to go. Su Qingsang walked into the hospital and smelled the familiar smell of disinfectant. She successfully found the gynecology department. The director here was Sun Huiya, Zhang Qiubai's classmate. Su Qingsang took the recommendation letter and found Sun Huiya. Su Qingsang, right? Sun Huiya looked at the recommendation letter in her hand and looked up at Su Qingsang. She was less than 50 years old, wore a pair of glasses and looked very friendly. Yes, I'm Su Qingsang. I've heard my teacher mention you before. She told me to learn from you. I wouldn't dare to say that I'm learning. It's the world of you youngsters now. I've read the 2 papers you've published in the journal. Not bad, the younger generation will surpass us in time. Sun Huiya put down the recommendation letter in her hand and looked at Su Qingsang. Although Su Qingsang was her old classmate's favorite student, there were still some things that needed to be made clear. You might not know about our hospital. It's bigger than Lin City and it receives more patients. He was usually tired as well. If you feel tired or busy, you have to think it through. If you think it's okay, I'll get someone to take you through the procedures. You'll start working in a few days. Don't worry, Teacher Sunday. Since I'm here, I'm a part of the first hospital. I'll work hard. I can tell. I've also heard your teacher talk about you. It's just that there are some things that we should say first. It's better than complaining later. Don't you think so? Understood. Su Qingsang nodded. Sun Huiya called someone over and took Su Qingsang to go through the admission procedures. This is my student Zheng Qinyu. Let him take you there. Thank you, Teacher Sunday. Su Qingsang was a little surprised to see Zheng Qinyu. After all, there weren't many men who studied obstetrics and gynecology. Hello, my name is Su Qingsang. Hello, I'm Zheng Qinyu. After the two of them introduced themselves, Zheng Qinyu took Su Qingsang to the hospital to go through the procedures. He was tall and thin and looked very gentle. Are you teacher's son's student? In Su Qingsang's previous school, all the obstetrics and gynecology departments were women. This was the first time she had seen a man. Are you surprised to see a man studying gynecology? Zheng Qinyu saw the curiosity in Su Qingsang's eyes and joked, after all, there aren't many men who study this. A little. Su Qingsang nodded in agreement. There aren't many. It was the same reason why there weren't many female doctors who went to study andrology. I was the only one in my class. You don't know how miserable it was. I never dared to skip class in school. I would be called to answer questions every time. I think your teacher must pay special attention to you. I don't need special attention. After all, I'm the only one who pays attention to me. But after a long time, not only our teacher, but even the female students in my class don't treat me as a man anymore. Chapter 471. I can't help it even if I do. I've already jumped into a pit, haven't I? Zheng Qinyu's words made Su Qingsang laugh again. This colleague was quite interesting. While the two of them were talking, they arrived at the hospital office and completed the procedures. Because tomorrow was the weekend, they decided to start work next Monday. After coming out, she thanked Zheng Qinyu and left. Su Qingsang began to look forward to working here in the future. It seemed that the colleagues in this hospital were not difficult to get along with. She believed that they would be able to cooperate well in the future. Walking out of the hospital gate, Su Qingsang got into the car. As soon as she drove out of the hospital gate, she saw a thin man in front of her running in her direction. The figure quickly ran across the road. Before Su Qingsang could stop, the thin man was followed by a very tall man who was running after him. Su Qingsang was about to step on the brake, but the man had already rushed to the front of her car. Su Qingsang was shocked. Just as she thought that she would crash into him, the man jumped directly in front of her car. Su Qingsang had no choice but to step on the brake. As soon as the car stopped, the man behind had already jumped forward with the force of the car. Next, she saw a special effect scene that could only be seen in movies. The man kicked the thin man in front of him and directly kicked him to the ground. Ouch! The thin man lay down. Before he could get up, the tall man had already stepped forward and stepped on him. At the same time, a woman from the other side of Su Qingsang's car ran over, panting. The woman panted and ran to the tall man's side. The man had already picked up a lady's bag from the thin man on the ground and handed it to the woman. Su Qingsang finally understood what was going on. It turned out that the tall man was acting bravely for a just cause. That thin man turned out to be a thief. Your bag. Thank you. Thank you. The woman took her bag and checked it. Everything is here. Thank you so much for today. She was panting as she spoke. Obviously she had run all the way here. You're welcome. The tall man reached out, bent down and easily picked up the thief. The moment he was picked up, he immediately cursed, "Bastard, you ruined my plan. Believe it or not, I won't be polite to you." The tall man twisted his hands behind his back. The thief screamed again. Let go. Who do you want to be rude to? I was wrong. Let go. When the thief saw the man's figure, he quickly begged for mercy. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Hero, please have mercy and let me go. Su Qingsang almost laughed out loud. Are all thieves nowadays so good at writing? It was really a pity to be a thief. Don't worry, when we get to the police station I will naturally let you go. As the tall man spoke, he twisted the thief's arm and left. His movements were clean and efficient. After watching for a while, the onlookers dispersed. Su Qingsang looked at the scene in front of her. He clicked his tongue in his heart. How amazing. The skill. It was truly amazing. From the looks of it, that person should be an undercover police officer. Are all the police uncles so skilled now? As the car continued to move forward, Su Qingsang saw that the thief was still cursing, but the tall man kept twisting his hand and refused to let go. Because she was driving, Su Qingsang only took a quick glance through the rearview mirror. That man was quite handsome, wasn't he? His eyebrows were high and his eyes were full of spirit. He looked resolute and stylish. Well, the police nowadays were not only skilled but also handsome. Indeed, all the handsome had been handed over to the country. Su Qingsang was in a good mood because of this incident, so she didn't forget to praise Hu Jinyao when she got home at night. It was all because of how handsome the police officer was and how skilled he was. The result of such praise was that Hu Jingyao was unhappy. He pressed Su Qingsang on the bed and gave her a good lesson, so she almost couldn't get out of bed the next morning. Su Qingsang went downstairs. There was no one in the living room. After going to the dining room for breakfast, she found that Hu Jingyao was playing chess with old Master Hua in the living room. "You're up." Hu Jingyao looked at her and reached out to her. "Have you had breakfast? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Su Qingsang glared at him. Why didn't he sleep a little longer? Weren't there guests coming today? How could she have the nerve to sleep in? "Your mother went out again?" Old Master Hua greeted Su Qingsang. His eyes returned to the chessboard and he put down a piece. "Yes. They said that Qing Xinyun's mother is sick. My mother went to see her." Old Master Hua didn't say anything. Whether it was because he went to see Qing Xinyun's mother or because he didn't want to admit Su Qingsang's identity in front of so many relatives, they all knew. In fact, Su Qingsang also noticed that every time old Master Li and Li Qianxue came, Lu Tongjia wasn't there. She really didn't expect Lu Tongjia to dislike her so much. She didn't seem to have offended her, did she? She looked at Hu Jingyao. If it wasn't because of her, then what did Hu Jingyao do? Why did he make Lu Tongjia dislike her son so much? With her grandfather around, Su Qingsang couldn't ask for the answer. Before the grandfather and grandson finished their game, the first guest had arrived. Hua Yangyuan and his wife, Gao Shulan. His eldest son Hua Mingfan and his wife Jia Shibai were also there. Their children were in another city. Their youngest son Hua Mingqi was currently in office and didn't come. However, his youngest grandson Hua Ruifeng came. He was younger than Hu Jingyao and had just graduated from university this year. He was wearing a pair of glasses and looked handsome and gentle. Su Qingsang followed behind Hu Jingyao and greeted the elders one by one. Hua Yangyuan and Gao Shulan both prepared gifts for Su Qingsang. Not only them but Hua Mingfan and Jia Shibai also gave their own gifts. Although Hua Mingqi didn't come himself, Hua Ruifeng gave their gifts on behalf of his parents. Su Qingsang didn't expect to receive gifts. She couldn't refuse, so she accepted them under old Master Hua's suggestion. They had just sat down and chatted for a while when Hu Jinyao's great-aunt Hu Yangxiu came. "Great-aunt." Hu Jinyao stood up and greeted Hu Yangxiu. It was obvious that he was very close to this great-aunt. Her eldest daughter-in-law Yi Qiuan and her twin sons, Zhang Qinghao and Zhang Qingxian came with her. Su Qingsang stood beside Hu Jinyao and greeted her great-aunt. Hu Yangxiu held Su Qingsang's hand and looked her up and down. "Not bad. Jinyao has good taste this time. Look at this daughter-in-law, she's so beautiful." Su Qingsang blushed a little. Hu Yangxiu took out a box and put it in Su Qingsang's hand. "Your great-uncle and uncle are in the army and didn't have time to come. Next time when you're free you can come to our place and I'll take you to meet your relatives." "Great-aunt, you're too polite." Su Qingsang had heard from Hu Jinyao that Hu Yangxiu's husband was a commander. His other two sons and daughter were all soldiers and didn't have holidays easily. She could understand. Yi Qiuan stepped forward and handed her a gift. Su Qingsang took the box from him. She felt that she was here to receive gifts today. Looking at the pile of boxes, she didn't need to open them to know that the things inside were valuable. She looked at Hu Jinyao with a meaningful look in her eyes. How could she return the gifts in the future with so many gifts? Hu Jinyao winked at her, indicating that she didn't need to be too nervous. These were all small gifts. After a while, Hua Mingliang's family and Hua Mingmei's family also arrived. A large group of people suddenly squeezed into the living room. It looked very lively. Where's Tongjia?" After Hu Yangxiu sat down, she realized that she hadn't seen Hua Mingguang and his wife. She turned to old Master Hua and asked about Lu Tongjia. As the eldest daughter-in-law of the Hua family, Hu Yangxiu had always been very satisfied with Lu Tongjia's way of doing things. In addition, she was a friend of Lu Tongjia's mother, so she especially valued this niece of hers. Only then did she realize that not only was Lu Tongjia absent, but Hua Mingguang was also absent. "Big brother, where did the eldest and his wife go? Why aren't they here? The second son's family and the third son's family were all here. Why wasn't the eldest son here?" "A friend of my mother's is sick. She went to visit early in the morning. She hasn't come back yet." Hu Jinyao explained faintly, his voice was very soft. The others in the living room looked at each other and finally looked at Hu Jinyao. "What about the in-laws?" Hu Yangyuan changed the topic at the right time. They naturally knew about what happened between Lu Tongjia and Hu Jinyao. "My mother and my grandfather are on the way. They'll be here soon." As soon as Su Qingsang finished speaking, Li Qinxue and Old Master Li arrived. Lu Tongjia and Hua Mingguang entered the door with them. Lu Tongjia didn't look too good, and Hua Mingguang stood beside her, expressionless. However, Li Qinshua's expression was even worse than Lu Tongjia's. It wasn't until she entered the door and saw the people in the living room and her daughter's concerned eyes that she forced the corners of her mouth to twitch, trying to make herself look normal. Lu Tongjia stood aside with obvious mockery in her eyes. Hua Mingguang put his hand on her shoulder, as if to comfort her silently. The situation in front of them was obviously not right. Su Qingsang blinked and stepped forward to hold Li Qinshua's hand. With the other hand she held Old Master Li's arm. "Grandpa, Mom, you're here at the right time. Jinyao's great-aunt and great-uncle are all here. Let me introduce them to you." Li Qinshua had been through a lot after all. A few seconds was enough for her to adjust her expression. "I'm sorry. I was delayed on the way here, so I'm late. I'm really sorry." She saw the two elders sitting with Old Master Hua and guessed that they should be his great-uncle and great-aunt. They were considered Old Master Hua's peers, so naturally she had to greet them first. She had always been very polite to the elders. Naturally she was also being modest. Normal people would smile and smooth things over. After all, no one would really ask why Li Qinshua was delayed on the way here. Chapter 472. Hearing Li Qinshua's words, Lu Tongjia took a step forward and was about to speak. Hua Mingguang quickly grabbed her arm and took her in the direction of Hua Yangxiu and the others. "Uncle, Aunt, I'm so sorry. I accompanied Tongjia to visit a friend, so we came back late. Uncle and Aunt, please don't mind. We're all family. You don't have to be so polite." Hua Yangyuan had been in the government for a long time, so his words were naturally watertight. "Yes, sit down." Hua Yangxiu also spoke and gestured for the couple to sit down. However, Old Master Li and Li Qinshua hadn't sat down yet after greeting the two of them. Old Master Li's expression was a little strange. Old Master Hua also stood up and asked them to sit down. "Come, Brother Yongfeng, sit here." Old Master Li's expression eased a little and he sat down with Li Qinshua. Except for Hua Yangxiu and Hua Yangyuan, the rest of the people present were of the same generation as Li Qinshua. Hua Jinyao introduced them to each one of them. Li Qinshua always had a decent smile on her face, as if the ugly expression on her face when she entered the door was an illusion. In the eyes of the other relatives of the Hua family, Li Qinshua was naturally very decent. They looked at Su Qingsang, who was sitting next to Li Qinshua, and the two of them interacted with her from time to time. For Hua Yangxiu and Hua Yangyuan, this in-law looked very good. However, for people like Hua Mingliang and Hua Mingmei, who had always known that Su Qingsang was just an illegitimate daughter, the scene in front of them was suspicious. Hua Mingmei glanced at her brother and sister-in-law and found that Lu Tongjia didn't seem to be in a good mood. Occasionally her eyes met with Li Qinshua's and they weren't kind. After thinking about it, she understood what was going on. Su Qingsang was just an illegitimate daughter. Li Qinshua and Old Master Li must have come for the power of the Hua family. Uncle and aunt didn't know the inside story so they couldn't see it, but Lu Tongjia definitely knew. Hua Mingmei felt that she had thought of the key point, and when she looked at Su Qingsang again, her eyes were a little malicious. "Eldest brother's wife is called Qingsang, right? Look at me, I can't remember this name." She started by belittling Su Qingsang, which successfully made the people in the living room talk and form their own small circles to look at her and Su Qingsang at the same time. Su Qingsang didn't respond but glanced at Hua Mingmei. His gaze was indifferent, not taking her provocation to heart. "Qingsang, I think I heard you call the person next to you Mom?" "Yes," Su Qingsang said calmly. "This is my mother. But I heard from Hua Jinyao that your mother is someone else." In fact, everyone knew that Su Qingsang was actually an illegitimate daughter. Hua Mingmei rolled her eyes and said faintly, "Why are you calling me Mom now?" The sarcastic and suggestive voice made Su Qingsang and Li Qinshua frown at the same time. Hua Jinyao's face darkened, and his eyes turned extremely cold. "I've already explained this to the old man. After Qingsang was born, the hospital mistakenly switched her. I didn't know until later that Qingsang was my biological daughter. Since Qingsang and I are mother and daughter, and we've acknowledged each other, it's natural for her to call me Mom," Li Qinshua said calmly. Although the others didn't believe it, it was unlikely that they would question it at this time. Only Lu Tongjia, who was a little far from Li Qinshua, looked a little cold, and the corners of her mouth and eyebrows were full of sarcasm. Hua Mingguang looked at his wife, pressed her arm, and gave her a look of approval. "Oh, the wrong switch. You didn't know until later, so you acknowledged each other?" Hua Mingmei dragged out the last word and looked like she suddenly understood. You acknowledged each other after Su Qingsang married Hua Jinyao. This is a good time to acknowledge each other. It's really good. She faked a smile and looked at the other people present. You didn't find out sooner or later. You didn't find out until Hua Jinyao married her. It's really good to find out. Everyone present was smart. Hearing Hua Mingmei's words, how could they not understand? It was nothing more than that the Li family recognized the illegitimate daughter as their biological daughter because they saw that the inconspicuous illegitimate daughter had married into the Hua family. Old Master Li's face darkened because of Hua Mingmei's words. However, he was older than Hua Mingmei, so he naturally couldn't lower himself to argue with her. Su Qingsang's face darkened. Her lips moved and she was about to speak. However, the back of her hand was pressed down by Li Qianxue. This is... Li Qianxue pressed her hand to stop her from speaking, but her gorgeous eyes were staring straight at Hua Mingmei's face. Hua Jinyao had introduced her before, but Li Qianxue seemed to have forgotten it. I'm Jinyao's aunt. Hua Mingmei knew that she was doing it on purpose, and her face darkened even more. Oh, you're just my aunt. I thought you were Jinyao's mother. Li Qianxue smiled, but she didn't finish her sentence. What do you mean? Nothing. After all, Jinyao's mother hasn't said anything yet. You're in charge, so I'm just asking. It was obvious that he was scolding Hua Mingmei for being a busybody. Hua Mingmei was enraged by Li Qianxue's words. She blushed and glared at Li Qianxue. What? Can't I ask? I've seen a lot of people like you. Wasn't he just eyeing the power of the Hua family? For the sake of money, you even accepted an illegitimate daughter. Aren't you afraid of losing face? Everyone present watched the scene unfold before them. Both the old and the young didn't speak, and Hua Yifan and the other juniors looked interested. Mingmei. Grandfather Hua couldn't stand it anymore. What nonsense are you talking about? Did I say something wrong? Hua Mingmei glanced at old Master Hua. Although our family said that we don't interfere with our children's freedom of marriage, we don't want to interfere with them. But to have such in-laws is really... He didn't say the last two words, but everyone understood what he meant. I don't think it's embarrassing. Li Qianxue saw that Hua Jinyao was about to speak, but she spoke first. Her voice was still calm. You know who your daughter is, but you don't acknowledge her. That's embarrassing. As for you accepting a daughter for the sake of power, people say that if you have Buddha in your heart, everything you see is Buddha. If you have a devil in your heart, everything you see is a devil. And you must be the kind of person who would accept a daughter for the sake of power, right? What did you say? Hua Mingmei had never been mocked like this in her life. She stood up immediately. I won't repeat my good words. Even though Li Qianxue was sitting, she didn't lose in terms of aura. You don't look very old, but your ears are starting to fail. You should go and have a checkup. She had to keep a low profile when she was in someone else's territory. But Hua Mingmei's words were too harsh. If she didn't stand up for her daughter, how could she have a foothold in the Hua family in the future? Hua Mingmei's husband, Wei Nantian, had been silent until now. He understood that his wife couldn't take advantage of him. He pulled Hua Mingmei's arm and signaled for her to stop talking. Hua Mingmei shook off his hand. She was so angry that her chest was heaving up and down. She suddenly turned to look at old Master Hua. Father, are you just going to watch someone bully your daughter? Old Master Hua didn't say anything, but Li Qianxue laughed. Why do I bully you? It's really interesting. It seemed like only a child would complain to his parents when something happened. My Yusin is 17 years old this year, and even he wouldn't do such a thing. She was saying that Hua Mingmei was worse than a child. Hua Mingmei nodded repeatedly. Good. How is this a marriage? It's clearly a feud, isn't it? Mingmei, sit down. Old Master Hua looked at Hua Mingmei, his eyes full of disapproval. Sit down. Hua Mingmei stood still. Wei Nantian pulled her body slightly and made her sit down. Old Master Hua cleared his throat and looked at Li Qianxue awkwardly. I'm sorry. Mingmei has been spoiled by me since she was a child. She doesn't know her limits. I was just talking nonsense. Please don't take it to heart, in-law. Who was talking nonsense? Hua Mingmei was about to lose her temper again. Wei Nantian pressed her shoulder and whispered something in her ear. She turned her face away angrily and stopped looking at them. Of course not. As Li Qianxue spoke, she turned around and gave Su Qingsang a loving look. Originally, we didn't need to listen to Aunt Jinyao's words. Although Qingsang is a good child, she is a little clumsy and doesn't know how to speak well. As her mother, I overstepped my authority and said a few more words. I hope you won't take it to heart, old master. We're a family from now on. Of course I won't take it to heart. Old Master Hua's words were quite beautiful. He turned to look at Old Master Li. Brother Yongfeng, don't you think so? Of course. Old Master Li looked around and understood what was going on. He quite agreed with what his daughter had just done. However, there was still a faint worry in his heart. He was worried that Su Qingsang would have to face such a big family in the future. Her mother-in-law was not easy to get along with. In the future, Hui Yangyuan, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Yes. This family doesn't need to be polite. We're a family from now on. It's also fate that we can become in-laws. There's nothing wrong with it. As soon as he spoke, Hui Yangxiu also chimed in. Several of the most senior people had spoken, and the rest of the younger generation couldn't say anything else. Old Master Hua's intention to protect Su Qingsang was too obvious. Even if the younger generation still had some thoughts in their hearts, they swallowed them back. Even if the matter was over, no one in the living room would talk about what had just happened. Only Lu Tongjia looked at Li Qianxue, her eyes full of mockery. Su Qingsang felt that look, not to mention the others. When it was time to go out for lunch at noon, she asked Li Qianxue and Old Master Li to get in her car. Almost as soon as she got in the car, she couldn't help but ask Li Qianxue. Chapter 473. Li Qianxue glanced at her daughter. Her expression was a little strange. Not only her, but Old Master Li's face also darkened when he thought of what happened before. What happened? Your mother-in-law knows. Li Qianxue suddenly became very depressed when she said this. She didn't expect Su Qinghui to be so shameless. She didn't force Su Qinghui to sign before because of the two children. She didn't want others to know that Su Qingsang and Su Yusin had such a father. However, Su Qinghui obviously didn't know what it meant to give up. She had been in Rong City these days and received Su Qinghui's calls from time to time. He just wanted to say that he didn't want to sign. Don't divorce. Li Qianxue was sick of Su Qinghui. She hated this man as much as she loved him in the past. However, things had developed to this point. It was more than hate. It was still disgusting. In order not to divorce, Su Qinghui could tell any lie. He said that he cared about her the most now, that he regretted it, and that he knew he was wrong. He shouted. Did he think she was a fool? If she hadn't said that she would kick Su Qinghui out, he wouldn't have behaved like this and said such things. Now, for money, for property, he really had no bottom line. Li Qianxue didn't answer his calls recently. She didn't expect Su Qinghui to send a message. He actually told Li Qianxue that Su Peijian had come to Rong City. Su Qinghui didn't know that Su Peijian wanted to come to Rong City. But she was still the daughter he had loved for so many years. After the call with Su Peijian that day, he was still worried. He knew that Su Peijian blamed him. He wanted to make things clear with Su Peijian, but he didn't expect to see Su Peijian and Xiang Kaiping together. Peijian? Kaiping? Su Qinghui saw the mother and daughter finally recognize each other. For some reason, he felt inexplicably uncomfortable. You recognize each other? Why? Are you surprised that we recognize each other? Xiang Kaiping hated Su Qinghui now. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have recognized the wrong daughter. How could her daughter be chased out by someone? No. Su Qinghui looked at Su Peijian. He had some understanding of his daughter. As far as he knew, this daughter of his did not seem like the kind of person who would accept Xiang Kaiping. He even thought that Su Peijian would hate Xiang Kaiping for abandoning her and giving her the identity of an illegitimate daughter. However, Su Qinghui didn't expect that Su Peijian would not only admit it, but also admit it. Now he was actually living with Xiang Kaiping. To him this was too fantastical. Kaiping you and Peijian. Su Peijian's words couldn't be trusted. Su Qinghui would rather let Xiang Kaiping say it and see what she had to say. He had some understanding of Xiang Kaiping. She had had a disagreement with Su Peijian before, and she had a fight because of Su Qingsang. Could she really accept Su Peijian without any grudge? Su Qinghui knew Xiang Kaiping. But this understanding was based on the past. More importantly, he neglected the heart of a mother and believed what he heard. Once one sided with one's family and ignored reason, it was inevitable that one's perception would be biased. Peijian is my daughter. Xiang Kaiping didn't mind letting Su Qinghui know. You should know that I didn't get along well with her all those years ago, and we didn't get to know each other well. Now that this mistake has been corrected. What's so strange about me acknowledging her? Su Qinghui didn't know what to say. He vaguely felt that something seemed to be wrong. It seemed that something was out of control. However, he couldn't figure out what was wrong. He couldn't help but look at Su Peijian. Peijian? When Su Peijian saw Su Qinghui again, her forehead was still throbbing with pain. She didn't look well. However, that situation only lasted for a few seconds. Very quickly, she composed her emotions and expression. She held Xiang Caiping's arm and faced Su Qinghui. You seem to think that it's strange. Actually, there's nothing strange about it. After all, I'm my mother's daughter. Isn't it normal for me to acknowledge her? Peijian. Su Qinghui looked at his daughter. Not only did the feeling in his heart not disappear, but it also increased. He didn't want to speculate about his daughter with malice. However, Su Peijian's behavior made him instinctively feel that something was wrong. Dad, aren't you happy that I acknowledged my mother? Su Peijian looked at Su Qinghui. Even if he was her father, she still hated him now. I feel quite happy. After all, you and my mother have driven me out. I have to find a place to go, right? Peijian. I'm telling you, Auntie didn't mean that. You're just saying that I'm no longer your daughter. Su Peijian interrupted him. Enough. What's done is done. There's no point in talking about it. Su Qinghui was speechless. He looked at Su Peijian and Xiang Caiping and said, Peijian, no matter what, you're my most beloved daughter. That won't change. Really? Su Peijian smiled. She took a step forward before Xiang Caiping could speak. If that's the case, then Dad, give me the shares under your name. Xiang Caiping and Su Qinghui were stunned when they heard that. Especially Su Qinghui, who didn't expect Su Peijian to make such a request. He knew that Su Peijian was angry with him and thought that it was because she was unhappy with him. Peijian, this is impossible. With Li Qinshua's agreement, he couldn't give the shares to Su Peijian. Moreover, he had already made Li Qinshu so sad before. If he gave the company's shares to Su Peijian, he was afraid that Li Qinshu would never forgive him. It was true that he loved Su Peijian, but Su Peijian had acquired a lot of assets over the years. Secondly, he still felt sorry for Li Qinshu. He still wanted to ask for Li Qinshu's forgiveness. Under such circumstances, he would never do anything to make Li Qinshu unhappy. You see, you say that I'm your most beloved daughter, but in fact, your love is just lip service. Peijian. Su Qinghui couldn't agree with such words. If you want something else, I can give it to you. But the shares of Li Group, they belong to your auntie. I have no right to give them to you. It's true that they belong to my auntie. But who will she give them to in the end? Su Qingsang? Su Yusin? Anyway, I won't get a share. Right? So you have used your actions to prove that you don't treat me as a daughter at all. Since that's the case, why do you have to say that you treat me as your most beloved daughter? Don't you think it's fake? Peijian. Su Qinghui had been mentally and physically exhausted in the past few days. His wife wanted to divorce him and his 2 children were not close to him now. And his children who used to be close to him were now alienating him. Now that she said such words, Su Qinghui took 2 steps back and looked at his daughter in shock. Peijian. You should know how I've treated you all these years. I can give you what belongs to you. But what doesn't belong to you? What belongs to me is the identity of an illegitimate daughter, isn't it? You let me enjoy the life of a rich young lady for more than 20 years, and then you beat me down to the ground. Is this your love for me? Peijian. Su Qinghui's expression was ugly. He didn't expect that his most beloved daughter would fight back like this. And he couldn't even resist. Su Peijian sneered and her tone became sharp. Dad, there's no need to say more. I don't want to hear it. You can go now. I don't want to see you. Peijian. Go. Su Peijian turned around and looked at Xiang Caiping. I already have my own mother now. I will live a good life with my mother in the future. As for the rest, since you said it doesn't belong to me, I have nothing to say to you. Peijian, no matter what, I am still your father. Yes. Don't I call you Dad now? You can go. Su Qinghui wanted to say something, but Xiang Caiping took a step forward. Are you going or not? My daughter said she doesn't want to see you. Dad. You don't have to come to me anymore. Su Peijian didn't mind letting Su Qinghui know where she was going. My mother and I have decided to leave Lin City. So please don't come here next time. Leave Lin City? Su Qinghui looked anxious. Where are you going? My mother used to develop in Rong City. Now she wants to take me back to Rong City to continue living. Dad. You don't want me, but that doesn't mean my mother doesn't want me either. You are not willing to give it to me. My mother is willing to give it to me. So please don't come to us in the future. Peijian, that's right. Xiang Caiping also took a step forward. Su Qinghui, we have nothing to do with you now. Please don't come to us in the future. The 2 of them had the same attitude. Su Qinghui had no choice but to turn around and leave. After he left, Su Peijin looked at Xiang Kaiping. Mom, did you see that? That's how Dad treats me. Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Peijin, her eyes a little conflicted. Why did you ask your father for shares? It was true that she wanted to recognize her biological daughter. However, she didn't think that Su Peijin had the right to take the shares of Li Group. More importantly, she and her mother didn't want the things that belonged to that woman. Mom, I did it on purpose. Su Peijin hooked her arm and coquettishly said to her like a daughter, you saw it too. My father said that he loves me the most, but he can't even bear to give me a little bit of his property. What do I need such love for? Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Peijin and was momentarily confused. However, she still felt that there seemed to be something wrong. I just don't want the benefits from that woman, and I don't want you to have them. Chapter 474. Su Peijin didn't finish her sentence, but Xiang Kaiping could understand what she meant. She wanted to use this method to test Su Qinghui, but she didn't expect this result. I've finally seen through your father. He's as hypocritical as he can be. If he doesn't want to give it to you, then so be it. From now on we'll depend on each other. Damn it, everything is yours. Thank you, Mom. You're the best. Su Peijin buried her face in Xiang Caiping's arms, smelling the completely different scent from Li Qinshue's. Her eyes flashed with obvious emotion. Now I know who is really good to me. On this side, the relationship between mother and daughter was constantly improving. On the other side, Su Qinghui sat there in a daze after getting into the car. He didn't want to speculate about his daughter with the worst of intentions. However, Su Peijin's tone and expression just now made him feel that she meant it. She really wanted the shares of Li Group and really wanted to return to the Su family. The problem was that he didn't have the initiative in these two things now. Li Qinshui insisted on divorcing him, and he wanted to return to the Li family but couldn't. How could he give the shares of Li Group to Su Peijin? Even if he really had that ability, he didn't want to hurt Li Qinshue's heart anymore. Thinking that every time he called Li Qinshui in the past few days, they ended on bad terms, his heart was filled with bitterness. Now, Li Qinshui didn't even want to talk to him more than a few words. Every time he called, she asked when he would sign the papers and when the divorce would be. More importantly, no matter what he said, no matter how many words he said, Li Qinshui didn't believe a word. She scolded him for being shameless and shameless. She said that he would do anything to not get a divorce. He really wanted to be shameless. He really wanted to be shameless for once. However, listening to Li Qinshui's words, not only could he not get angry, but he only felt heartache. So, this was how Li Qinshui felt when he talked about her like that before? Thinking about it in her shoes, he would understand how she felt at that time. But now, he understood and Li Qinshui was no longer willing to believe it. Su Qinghui was very busy these days. On the one hand he was busy looking for Su Peijin, and on the other hand he was busy with the company. He knew that Li Qinshui no longer trusted him, but some things, some projects were handled by him. Even if he wanted to divorce Li Qinshui, he wanted to settle the matter first. Even if all his actions now fell into Li Qinshui's eyes, he still had to do it. Now that he knew that Su Peijin was going to Rong City, he felt that he should tell Li Qinshui and Su Qingsang. He always felt that Su Peijin's purpose in going to Rong City was not simple, although he did not want to think of her in this way. More importantly, he needed more opportunities to contact Li Qinshui. Even if it was just to hear her voice. But what he didn't expect was that he and Li Qinshui parted on bad terms again. Unlike Su Qinghui, who was unwilling to speculate about Su Peijin with the greatest evil, Li Qinshui did not mind speculating about Su Qinghui with the greatest evil. Peijin is coming to Rong City? Why would she come to Rong City? Li Qinshui recalled the argument she had with Su Qinghui on the phone. What's wrong? Do you think you can stop me from divorcing you just because Su Peijin is here? Aren't you being too optimistic? I don't mean that. I don't care whether you mean that or not. Su Peijin doesn't need to tell me whether she is coming to Rong City or not. Unless she is here to cause trouble for me and Qingsang. No. Su Qinghui instinctively defended Su Peijin. Why would she cause trouble for you? She has now met Xiang Kaiping. Xiang Kaiping used to live in Rong City, so she decided to bring Peijin there. That's why I decided to bring Peijin there. I don't think she's here to make trouble for you. Then you don't need to tell me. Although Li Qinshui also cared about Su Peijin, she would never show it at this time. She is no longer my daughter. She is your daughter. You don't need to tell me where she is going and what she is doing in the future. Qinshui, unless she came to Rong City to look for me or Qingsang, Su Qingsang said. That's impossible. It's best if it's impossible. Li Qinshua's voice was very cold. Su Qinghui, no matter what, I have raised Su Peijian for more than 20 years. I treat her as my own daughter. I have given her everything I can. If she can still blame me or Qing Sang in her heart, then I can only say that she is really not a good person. Qinshuo, don't say things like that. Peijian was brought up by you. Although she is a little spoiled and a little willful, but her nature is definitely not bad. You know this as well. I don't know. Of course, Li Qinshuo was willing to believe that Su Peijian's nature was not bad. No matter what, she was the daughter that she had raised. She would not and did not want to think badly of Su Peijian. However, when facing Su Qinghui, Li Qinshuo did not want him to think too much. Just like I once wanted to believe you, believe that even if you didn't love me, but there was still the minimum respect and honesty for me. In the end, I found out that my respect and honesty were a joke. You replaced my daughter and made my daughter grow up with the reputation of being an illegitimate daughter, and made her even more ridiculed now. Su Qinghui, now you are talking to me about trust. Do you think you still have trust in front of me? Qinshuo? Don't call my name. Li Qinshuo could not think about those things. In fact, she did not want to think about what had happened before. For the past few days, she had been accompanying her daughter and accompanying her old father to walk around and look around. Originally, she had begun to feel much more cheerful. However, Su Qinghui always had to call from time to time and appear in front of her, making her feel like she was being stared at by a fly. Su Qinghui, since you exchanged Qing Sang and Peijian's identities and made Qing Sang an illegitimate daughter, I have nothing to say to you anymore. I have nothing more to say to you. I only have one request now, and that is for you to sign the divorce papers. Qinshuo. If you still have a little conscience, don't think that you can get more benefits from maintaining this marriage. That's impossible. I don't think so, Qinshuo. I've said it before. I don't want to get a divorce because I realize that you are the most important person to me. Su Qinghui, before I completely hate and disgust you, put away your hypocritical words that make me sick. If you really think that I am the most important person to you as you said, then I only hope that you sign the divorce papers. I will take this as your last kindness to me. Li Qinshuo received Su Qinghui's call when she was about to reach the Hua family's house with Old Master Li. She didn't want Old Master Li to worry, so she took her phone to the other side to make the call. The location she chose was the corner of the courtyard wall outside the Hua family's house. She clearly saw that there was no one there, but when she hung up the phone, she found that Lu Tongjia happened to be standing not far in front of her. Li Qinshuo did not know how long she had been listening, nor did she know how much she had heard. However, when she met Lu Tongjia's half-smile and mockery, she did feel awkward and uncomfortable. She wanted to turn around and leave as if nothing had happened, but Lu Tongjia walked towards her step by step. She tilted her face and stared at Li Qinshuo. Change children? Divorce? Naturally, Li Qinshuo felt uncomfortable when someone heard her most embarrassing thing. However, this woman was Lu Tongjia, the Lu Tongjia who had been at odds with her from the beginning. Eavesdropping doesn't seem to be the behavior of a gentleman. Eavesdropping? Lu Tongjia looked at Li Qinshuo as if she was watching a joke. Do you want me to remind you that the land you are standing on now belongs to the Hua family? She said that she was eavesdropping in the Hua family's territory? If I remember correctly, I don't think I stepped into your yard. Indeed you didn't. Lu Tongjia didn't want to argue with Li Qinshuo anymore. She smiled coldly and looked a bit sarcastic. But you are standing on the road talking about these things. How can you blame others for eavesdropping? There weren't many things in Li Qinshuo's life that could make her feel embarrassed. This was one of them. Most importantly, the person who heard it was Lu Tongjia. She knew all too well that this woman had a problem with Su Qingsang. She might say something unpleasant to Su Qingsang. Li Qinshuo forced herself to act as if nothing had happened. Her face was also calm. Sorry, it's time to meet with old Master Hua. I'll leave now. You're in a hurry to leave? Lu Tongjia was really glad that she wanted to get out of the car for a walk. Otherwise, she wouldn't have heard such a wonderful show. Did you just say that Su Qingsang's father changed her identity? You heard wrong. Li Qinshuo's expression didn't change. Heard wrong? The smile on Lu Tongjia's lips became more and more radiant. My hearing is very good. That's why. No wonder I said that she was an illegitimate daughter. How did she become a rich young lady? So that's what happened? Li Qinshuo knew that if the Hua family found out about this, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. The upper class valued their followers the most. No matter how dirty it would be behind closed doors. No one would really put some things on the table. Especially those with illegitimate daughters. Changing the identity of an illegitimate daughter like this, turning her into a rich young lady, turning a legitimate young lady into an illegitimate daughter, was something that no family could tolerate. Thinking of this, she hated Su Qinghui more and more. No matter what she thought, Li Qianxue didn't show it on her face. Yes. So, Su Qingsang is my biological daughter. There's no such thing as acknowledging an illegitimate daughter for the sake of money and connections with the Hua family. Are you relieved now? Chapter 475. Mrs. Hua, please don't cross the line. If there was anything in Li Qianshua's life that was a taboo for her, it was her children. If there was anything that could make her feel bad, it could only be her children. At the moment, Lu Tongjia thought that she had something on her. However, no matter what it was, she would not allow her to use this as an excuse to talk about her daughter. Qing Sang is innocent in this matter. Please don't involve her in this. I'm the one who wants to involve her? She insisted on marrying into our family. I don't know what kind of means she used. Lu Tongjia sneered, and the disdain in her eyes was clear. Hua Jinyao went to Lin City for less than 3 weeks, and he was already with your daughter. Hua Jinyao only went there to inspect the business. As soon as he came back, it became a marriage. When did your daughter and Hua Jinyao meet? Did you agree to this sudden marriage? At that time, you didn't know that she was your daughter, did you? At that time, your daughter was just an illegitimate daughter. How did she get together with Hua Jinyao? She put her foot on Hua Jinyao's shoulder. You found out about her parentage right after? Ah, what a coincidence. Before hearing this phone call, she didn't approve of Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao being together. Now that she heard this phone call, she disapproved of it even more. Lu Tongjia said that Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao's marriage was a conspiracy. Li Qianxue didn't want to be bullied. She was about to refute when old Master Li saw that she didn't come over and started to walk over. Li Qianxue cared about her father's feelings and didn't want to argue with Lu Tongjia in front of old Master Li. She could only look at her deeply, then turned and walked in the direction of old Master Li. Now that her daughter asked her what was going on, Li Qianxue couldn't tell Su Qingsang about Lu Tongjia in front of old Master Li. Nothing. I just thought that today is the day you meet the Hua family, but your mother-in-law ran out. I'm just a little upset. Mom, it's okay. Su Qingsang knew that Li Qianxue was worried about her, but she didn't think it was a big problem. Hua Jinyao has an apartment in the city. It's half an hour's drive from his company and only 20 minutes from the hospital where I work. In any case, I'll start work in 2 days. If Hua Jinyao and I live outside and don't come back often, we won't have the chance to spend time with my mother-in-law. Li Qianxue saw that Su Qingsang was still optimistic, but she couldn't think of things as simple as her. Knowing what Su Qinghui had done, Lu Tongjia put Su Qingsang in the same category. Li Qianxue knew that Su Qingsang would have to face some difficulties in the future. After thinking for a while, she squeezed Su Qingsang's hand hard. Qingsang, listen to me. Although Hua Jinyao is very good to you right now, you still have to be careful. Although for the time being, you can also avoid living outside. However, as long as Hua Jinyao is still related to his mother by blood, you will have to face her in the future. Hua Jinyao may be on your side now, but no one can tell what will happen in the future. I don't recommend that you go back to your parents' house if you have a problem. But if that day really came, the Hua family can't tolerate you, so don't let yourself be wronged. Come home directly. After saying all this, Li Qianshue's voice was still a little sad. No matter what, you are a daughter of the Li family. Su Qingsang looked at Li Qianxue and felt warmth in her heart. She leaned her face against Li Qianshue's shoulder and gently rubbed it. Mom, don't worry. I know everything. She really knew everything and she really wouldn't let herself be wronged. What's more, she was willing to believe in Hua Jinyao. She believed that he wouldn't let her be wronged. Li Qianxue couldn't be optimistic, so she had some worries in her heart. On the one hand, she was still a little worried, but on the other hand, she hated Su Qinghui even more. If he hadn't done this, how could her Qingsang have experienced such a thing? How could she be looked down upon by her in-laws? Su Qinghui, I will never forgive you. The restaurant was booked at a very famous 5-star hotel near the Hua family's house. In the large private room, the Hua family and the Li family were sitting at 2 tables. Old Master Hua arranged for Old Master Li to sit next to him. Then he asked Li Qianxue to sit next to Old Master Li. On the other side were Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang. On the other side were Hua Yangyuan and Hua Yangxiu. Their attitude was enough to explain everything. With Old Master Hua around, no matter how much Lu Tongjia disliked Su Qingsang, she didn't show it. The elders were in one circle and the juniors were in another. The atmosphere of the meal was quite good. Especially towards the end, Old Master Hua looked at Old Master Li and his eyes fell on Su Qingsang. Brother Yongfeng, I like Qingsang very much as my granddaughter-in-law. You don't have to worry. Even if you aren't in Rong City, I will still treat her as my own granddaughter. Of course I'm not worried. Old Master Li's words were very tactful. With your words, Brother Hua, what else do I have to worry about? You don't have to be too accommodating to her. If there's anything wrong with her, feel free to point it out. Since you treat her as your own granddaughter, say whatever you want to say. Old Master Hua smiled and said, how can there be anything wrong with her? If you ask me, I only have one request for Qingsang right now. Turning to Su Qingsang, Old Master Hua's eyes were full of teasing. Ask her to give birth to a big fat boy so that I can see my great-grandson before I go into the coffin. I don't ask for anything else. Grandpa. Su Qingsang blushed, but she still added, you're not old. You want to live to 100 years old. Ha 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 ha. Old Master Hua laughed and waved his hand. I don't expect to live to 100 years old. When I see my great-grandson one day, I can die with peace of mind. Dad. What are you talking about? Hua Mingguang got up and poured a cup of tea for Old Master Hua. It's such a good day. Don't talk about it. Yes. I'm old and confused. Old Master Hua tried to smooth things over, but the others all looked at Su Qingsang. The elders were still fine, but the juniors were looking at him with an indecipherable expression. Especially Hua Yifan and Hua Yang, the two of them looked at each other with deep meaning in their eyes. Brother. Hua Manzi approached Hua Yifan and said in a low voice, if you use your time to get a wife and give birth to a son, you'll have a wife. I guess the person Grandpa values more now is you. Manzi, Hua Jinyao can win Grandpa's favor not because he can get a wife, Hua Yang said in a very low voice. That's because Grandpa is biased. Hua Yifan didn't look good. He stared at Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang sitting at another table with a slightly gloomy face. Second brother. Hua Manzi was really not convinced. Grandpa is very biased. Both of them are his sons and we are all his grandchildren, but he seems to only see Hua Jinyao. Stop talking. Hua Yifan narrowed his eyes, picked up the wine glass in front of him, and drank it in one gulp. Brother. Hua Manzi still wanted to say something, but Hua Yifan glanced at his brother and sister coldly. Don't talk so much. Hua Manzi stopped talking. Hua Yang also chose to shut his mouth after sneering. Hua Yifan stared at Hua Jinyao, then looked at the younger people sitting at the table with them. He tightened his grip on the glass so hard that his knuckles began to turn white. Yes, the people sitting at this table were all younger people. Hua Yifan, Wei Sihai and his sister, Zhang Qinghao and his brother, and even Hua Kaitao, a little kid. However, the people sitting at the other table with Old Master Hua were all elders. Old Master Hua and his sister were needless to say. The father and daughter of the Li family as well as their uncles and aunts. However, Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao were the only two younger people at this table. Old Master Hua's bias was obvious. The more Hua Yifan looked at them, the angrier his face became, and the tighter his grip on the glass became. He didn't know what they were talking about, but suddenly there was a burst of laughter. Even Lu Tongjia, who had always shown that she didn't like Su Qingsang, had a faint smile on her face. Hua Yifan's face became even more sullen, but it only lasted for a few seconds. He quickly returned to normal. There's still a long way to go. Hua Jinyao will see. All in all, the meeting between the Li family and the Hua family today was quite pleasant. Li Qinshui had been worried that Lu Tongjia would make things difficult for them at the dinner table and tell them what Su Qinghui had done. If that happened, she and Su Qingsang wouldn't have any face left. However, unexpectedly, Lu Tongjia didn't mention a word about it. Not only did she not mention it, but she even had a faint smile on her face when other people were talking. This undoubtedly made Li Qinshui even more worried about Lu Tongjia. She had a feeling that Lu Tongjia was waiting for a big move and would talk about it later. However, Su Qingsang didn't know what she was worried about at all. Instead, she came over and whispered in her ear. Mom, look, my mother-in-law is fine now, isn't she? Don't worry. People like her care about their reputation the most. They won't really do anything that would be beneath their status. Especially under such circumstances. As she spoke, she winked at Li Qinshui, and there was a hint of mischief on her face. Besides, I'm not someone who can be bullied. Mom, don't worry. Li Qinshui looked at Su Qingsang's face with mixed feelings. Su Qingsang had been raised as an illegitimate daughter for more than 20 years. Normally, such a person's personality would be a little awkward. However, Su Qingsang didn't have any. Not only did she not have any, but she also looked quite calm and rational. Most importantly, she had a good heart. This made her feel both sad and proud. She should feel relieved that her daughter had grown up like this in a place and at a time that she didn't know about. However, she felt that if it weren't for the environment, how could Su Qingsang be so sensible? The whispering didn't escape Lu Tongjia and Hua Jinyao's eyes. Chapter 476. When Hua Jinyao came out of the bathroom, he saw Su Qingsang lying on the bed, looking at her phone with both hands. He could hear her chuckling from time to time. The heater was on in the room. She was only wearing a short-sleeved nightdress. Perhaps it was because he was too excited, his 2 feet would shake from time to time. This movement made the nightgown lose its smoothness, and the hem of the skirt rolled up. Looking at Su Qingsang's well-proportioned and fair calves, Hua Jinyao's eyes darkened. He walked to the bed quietly and found that Su Qingsang didn't notice that he had finished showering. Su Qingsang was chatting with Shi Mengwan. A few days ago, when she came with Li Qianxue and Old Master Li, she selected a few pictures of the snowy scenery and posted them on her WeChat moments. For those in the south who had never seen snow before, apart from praising the snowy scenery, they were amazed. Shi Mengwan also saw it. Recently, she had been busy drawing a design. Now that she was done, she had time to chat with Su Qingsang. She expressed anger and blamed Su Qingsang for abandoning her and coming to Rong City. She expressed her envy and hatred for Su Qingsang for being able to see snow and playing the extremely childish game of snowball fights and making snowmen. The last message she sent was that she also wanted to visit Rong City. In order to tease her, Su Qingsang casually threw a few pictures of the snowy scenery at her. There was also a line of text attached. Come on. Come on. I'll show you the snow when you come. Also, I have a big secret to tell you. Li Qianxue and Old Master Li were not in the photos she sent. As for the fact that she and Li Qianxue had acknowledged each other, things had been happening every day since they had acknowledged each other. For a moment she didn't know how to tell Shi Mengwan. Shi Mengwan still thought that Su Qingsang had come with Xiang Kaiping. She even asked about Xiang Kaiping a few times. Thinking of Xiang Kaiping, Su Qingsang had mixed feelings. Speaking of which, what did Xiang Kaiping do wrong? She had simply fallen in love with the wrong person back then, and now she had recognized the wrong daughter. Su Qingsang still had Xiang Caiping's number in her phone, and she had not deleted Xiang Kaiping from her WeChat contact list. However, she did not have the courage to contact Xiang Kaiping. Xiang Caiping's accusation the other day made Su Qingsang sad, but at the same time she felt a great deal of guilt and self-blame. Regarding Shi Mengwan's question, she could only tell her that she would know when she came. This time, she changed the topic and talked about the interesting things that happened in Rong City. Shi Mengwan felt another wave of envy and jealousy. Su Qingsang didn't notice that Hua Jinyao had already taken a shower while they were chatting happily. When the phone in her hand was taken away, she was shocked. When she turned around, Hua Jinyao happened to be on top of her. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang knew what that look meant. For the past 2 days, this fellow had been saying that absence makes the heart grow fonder, tormenting her to no end. She had been tired for the whole day and really needed a good rest. I'm very tired today. I need to rest. Yes. It's good for your health to sleep after it's done. Nonsense. How could he say something without any scientific basis without batting an eyelid? Whether it's nonsense or not, you'll know after you try it. Putting her phone on the bedside table, Hua Jinyao's hand went back to her body and slowly reached for her skirt. Wait. Hua Jinyao propped up his arm and looked at her. His raised eyebrows silently showed that he would not stop. Just once, okay. Su Qingsang wanted to beg for mercy. She had a husband who was very strong. What could she do? Just once. I'm very tired today. Hua Jinyao stared at her little face and nodded. Okay. Just once. Hua Jinyao didn't ask what had happened between him and Lu Tongjia. No matter what Lu Tongjia knew or wanted to do, he would be there. However, that night, Hua Jinyao, who was extremely tired, had another nightmare. Endless darkness surrounded him. He tried hard to escape, but he couldn't. He could only keep running in the darkness. However, no matter how hard he ran, he couldn't run out of the darkness. At the end of the darkness was a vaguely familiar face. He looked at the familiar face and seemed to find the direction. He tried hard to run in that direction, but when he got closer, he saw the person's face clearly. The person put his hand on his neck and kept squeezing. Why don't you die? Why don't you die? The suffocation made Hua Jinyao wake up from the darkness. He patted his chest and kept panting. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang was really tired. Even the movement of the person beside her couldn't wake her up completely. She reached out and touched Hua Jinyao's hand subconsciously. Don't come. Sleep. Her hand was soft and warm. Hua Jinyao gently held her hand and felt the softness and warmth of her palm. He laid his body flat again, lay down beside Su Qingsang and fell asleep. He held her waist tightly and let her fall asleep against his chest. The dream just now became blurred. Hua Jinyao closed his eyes and fell asleep again. This time the nightmare didn't come again. Holding Su Qingsang, he dreamlessly slept until dawn. Rong City Airport. Su Qingsang looked at Li Qianxue and Old Master Li. She held Li Qianxue's hand and her eyes were full of reluctance. Mom, didn't you say you would stay for 10 days to half a month? Li Qianxue was also reluctant, but she had to go back to Lin City because something happened. Holding Su Qingsang's hand tightly, Li Qianxue tried not to let her eyes turn red. I really want to take you back. That's good. I'll buy another ticket now and go back with you. Nonsense again, right? Li Qianxue looked at Hua Jinyao who was standing next to her. You just say it. How can you bear to? Why not? I'll book the ticket now. Su Qingsang took out her phone as she spoke. Li Qianxue pressed her hand. Okay. Look at you, why are you throwing a tantrum? I'll let it go this time. I'll come to see you in the future. Besides, you can come back to Lin City to see me. That was what she said, but how could it be so easy? Su Qingsang suddenly reached out and hugged Li Qianxue. She had only been with Li Qianxue for a short time, but her feelings for her came from the bottom of her heart. She knew that this was the nature of blood. She really couldn't bear to leave Li Qianxue. Li Qianxue put her hands behind Su Qingsang and gently patted her back. Su Qingsang stepped back, her eyes still a little red. She sniffed and looked at Li Qianxue. Mom, you must come to Rong City to see me again. I'll go back to Lin City to see you too. Okay. Li Qianxue nodded. I have something to do this time. When I'm done, I'll come to see you when I have time. Su Qinghui was still working at the Li Corporation. Li Qianxue felt that it was intolerable. In addition, Su Qinghui had been dragging his feet and refusing to sign. She couldn't stand these things. She needed to go back to Lin City to settle things with Su Qinghui. But she wouldn't tell Su Qingsang about this. She didn't need to know. She just needed to be happy and live her life well. She glanced at Old Master Li and motioned for Su Qingsang to talk to him. After Su Qingsang stepped away from her, she glanced at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao immediately reacted, and the two of them took a few steps to the side. She didn't tell Su Qingsang that Lu Tongjia had overheard her call, because she couldn't figure out what Lu Tongjia wanted to do and what kind of attitude she would have. But she didn't want Su Qingsang to know about these things, so she had to tell Hua Jinyao. She told him about what Lu Tongjia had overheard her call that day and briefly mentioned what Lu Tongjia had said. After saying this, Li Qianxue looked at Hua Jinyao and said, Jinyao, I know you're a good person, but your mother does make me worry sometimes. So you don't mind me saying a few more words now, do you? In fact, after the last meal, she had told Su Qingsang some things about how to get along with Lu Tongjia. If flattery didn't work, then avoid the other party. As long as she didn't have any positive impulses and could maintain a superficial peace, it would be fine. However, if Lu Tongjia used her mother-in-law's identity to make things difficult for Su Qingsang, it would be a little awkward. At this time she could only let Hua Jinyao do it. Don't worry, Mom. I won't let Qingsang be wronged. That's good. When Li Qianxue spoke, she was still a little uncomfortable. Jinyao, don't blame me for being nosy. You also know that this child has been raised in the Su family as an illegitimate daughter. She has been wronged a lot since she was a child. I really don't want to see her be wronged anymore. Don't worry. I won't. I'm not an unreasonable person. If it's a small matter, it's fine to suffer a little. As a mother, I won't say anything. But your mother said that she cheated you into marrying her, and that she used a trick to make you marry her. These words sound too heart-wrenching. That's why I couldn't help. I know it all. After all these years, Hua Jinyao knew Lu Tongjia's personality very well. Don't worry. I know what to do. Besides, Qingsang married me, so she is my wife. I will definitely protect her. That's good. Li Qianxue had nowhere to put her guilt towards Su Qingsang. It was already past the best time to make up for it. In the future, she only hoped that Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao would be fine. It was almost time to board the plane. Su Qingsang looked at Li Qianxue and wanted to say something. All right. Don't send me off. Grandpa and I will have company. You can go back. Su Qingsang nodded and looked at Li Qianxue. Finally, she couldn't help but take a step forward and stand in front of her. She whispered, Mom, if it's possible, you and my dad should part ways. To be honest, she really didn't have much feelings for Su Qinghui. Although he was her father, Su Yusin was different. In the past few days when she was free, she would send photos to Su Yusin, chat, and talk about Li Qianxue and old Master Li's situation here. Su Qinghui had gone to see Su Yusin. She could feel that Su Yusin was wavering. Chapter 477. The last thing Li Qianxue wanted to hear was Su Qinghui's name. She had returned to Lin City this time to settle the matter between her and Su Qinghui. All right. This is an adult's matter. You don't have to worry about it. Li Qianxue's words made Su Qingsang want to laugh. Mom, I'm already married. Do you still treat me as a child? I just want to treat you like a child. If Su Qingsang was still a child, she could start over with her and cultivate a mother-daughter relationship again. Unlike now, no matter how much he doted on his daughter, there were still more than 20 years between them. If Su Qingsang were still a child, she would have stopped her from studying medicine. It would be good to study business. She could help out in the company and she could keep her by her side. Some things were in the past. It was too late for her to regret. But she didn't want to let go of the person who caused all this. Su Qingsang couldn't convince Li Qianxue, so she could only watch her enter the boarding gate and leave. Let's go. Hu Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulders when they could no longer be seen. Hu Jinyao. Su Qingsang suddenly turned to look at Hu Jinyao. Why do I feel a little uneasy? You think too much. Li Qianxue hated Su Qinghui so much right now. At most, she would divorce him and make him leave the Huaxia family without a penny. She would make him leave the Huaxia family with nothing. Li Qianxue wouldn't kill Su Qinghui, would she? If he wanted to make a move, he would have done it long ago. He didn't do anything impulsive when he was angry, and he probably wouldn't do it now either. Let's go. Maybe I'm thinking too much. He didn't think Li Qianxue was that pitiful before. Now that she knew what Su Qinghui had done, she truly felt sorry for Li Qianxue. Jinyao, do you think Auntie is now? If you want to know, I can find someone to investigate. Hu Jinyao knew that Xiang Kaiping was a good person. After spending a few months with Xiang Kaiping, he really respected her. No need. Su Qingsang thought of the information she had received before. Anyway, Su Peijian has already acknowledged her. I think she will get along well with her, right? Xiang Kaiping was a good person. She believed that Su Peijian would feel Xiang Caiping's kindness sooner or later. As long as she felt it, she would slowly accept Xiang Kaiping as time went by. At that time, Xiang Caiping's bitterness had finally come to an end. Hu Jinyao didn't think so. He didn't want a girl who was used to being the daughter of a rich family to suddenly recognize a woman with no power as her mother. Based on Su Peijian's personality, this matter was still a little uncertain. In any case, he had reservations. However, he wouldn't tell Su Qingsang this at this time. He didn't want her to think too much. Let's go. Go home. Yes. Let's go home. Su Qingsang also needed to prepare for work tomorrow. Not long after they left the airport, a plane slowly landed. Xiang Kaiping didn't expect to come back here after going around in circles. She had only been gone for a few months, but the things that she had experienced made her feel as if several years had passed. Mom, be careful. Su Peijian held Xiang Caiping's arm and smiled sweetly. You haven't fully recovered from your waist injury. You should be careful when going up and down stairs. I'm fine. I'm almost fully recovered. Ever since Xiang Kaiping had acknowledged her as her daughter, she had gradually become more energetic. She didn't look like she wanted to live anymore. She took the initiative to do rehabilitation. Now, as long as she didn't carry heavy things or do strenuous exercise, she would have no problem living a normal life. You still have to be careful. Su Peijian held Xiang Kaiping. When we get home, I need to hire 2 more caregivers to take care of you. I also need to hire a nanny. When Su Peijian said this, her expression was unexpectedly firm. I still need to work hard to earn money so that you can live a good life. Mom doesn't need you to do anything. Xiang Kaiping had been happy because of Su Peijian these days. Speaking of which, although Su Qingsang's personality wasn't bad, she was still a little cold. After getting to know her, she could also joke around and get closer to her. However, she really didn't have anyone like Su Peijian who would say nice things to make her happy from time to time. Su Peijian had a sweet tongue and was also her biological daughter. After spending a few days together, Xiang Kaiping not only sincerely accepted her as her daughter, but also became much closer to her. After calling a car, the two of them went to the house where Xiang Kaiping used to live. Before coming, Xiang Kaiping had already called the housekeeper who took care of her before and asked her to clean up the place. Before going to Lin City, she had originally asked the housekeeper to clean up the place when she had nothing to do. Now that the house was cleaned up, they could move in directly. Because Xiang Kaiping liked a place with a yard, she bought this small villa after she earned her first sum of money and paid off the previous bank loan. It was 2.5 stories, not big, with a small yard on one side and a parking lot in the back. At that time, she felt that it was enough to live by herself, and there was still space with the housekeeper. When she was free, she would plant flowers and raise grass in front of the house. Look, I haven't taken care of it for a while, and the garden has deteriorated. Xiang Kaiping entered the door and saw that the flowers and plants she used to live in had withered. It had snowed before, and even though the snow had melted now, some plants couldn't withstand the cold. She was so focused on her own yard that she didn't notice Su Peijian's expression. Su Peijian heard from Xiang Kaiping that she also had her own business in Rong City and had saved some money, so she thought that it was a big business. Now that she saw this 2.5-story house, her heart sank. What kind of villa was this? Even the servants' apartments behind the Su family's main house were bigger than this. Peijian, come in. Xiang Kaiping opened the door and gestured for Su Peijian to enter. Su Peijian immediately hid the disappointment on her face and walked forward with a smile. Mom, your place is so elegant. It's not good now. Look, the flowers and plants are all withered. I'll replant some later, and I believe that when spring comes, this place will look better. I believe you. I was too lazy to go upstairs, so I put the room on the first floor. There are 3 rooms upstairs, and you can live in the master bedroom, the biggest one. Okay. I'll listen to you, Mom. As Su Peijian spoke, she carried her luggage upstairs. The corners of Su Peijian's mouth tightened as she looked at the small house. Until she entered the door and looked at the room in front of her. It was bigger than the average room. But it couldn't compare to her room in the Su family. Xiang Kaiping was packing her luggage downstairs. Su Peijian threw the luggage on the floor and lay on the bed with a dark face. The quilt and bed sheets were newly changed and they still had the smell of sunshine. But to Su Peijian, such a small room made her feel uncomfortable and uncomfortable. Staring at the ceiling above her, her mood became even gloomier. There was no dreamy white gauze like a princess, no gorgeous crystal chandeliers. She resisted the urge to scratch her head and forced herself to calm down. I'm no longer the eldest daughter of the Su family. Su Peijian. She kept reminding herself in her heart, and continued to deepen the hatred. After a few minutes, when Su Peijian had calmed down, Xiang Kaiping also went upstairs. Peijian. How is it? Do you like this room? She came back in a hurry and only had time to clean it up. Looking at the room now, Xiang Kaiping suddenly felt that it was too simple. I like it. Su Peijian had already gotten up when she spoke and quickly stood next to Xiang Kaiping. I like it very much. Really? Xiang Kaiping felt a little guilty. Don't you think the room is too small and there are too few things? Mom? Su Peijian hooked her arm. Who am I now? I'm not the eldest daughter of the Su family. I'm already very satisfied to have a room like this. Xiang Kaiping was pleased that she was so sensible. It's good that you like it. Don't think about work for now. Stay here and have fun for a few days. There are some good places in Rong City. As for what to do, we'll talk about it later. Okay. I'll listen to you. Su Peijian looked like a filial daughter. Xiang Kaiping was even more satisfied. She also felt a little sorry for her. In her heart, she decided to hand over the management of the 2 supermarket chains to Su Peijian. She believed that with something to do, she would not think about what happened in Lin City before. After discussing with Old Master Hua, Su Qingseng and Hua Jinyao finally got Old Master Hua to let them live in an apartment in the city. However, Old Master Hua asked them to go back to the Hua mansion for dinner on the weekends. Naturally, Su Qingseng agreed to this condition. The next day, Su Qingseng finally started to work. Monday morning was the time when the hospital was the busiest. As soon as Su Qingseng arrived, someone from the unit arranged for a female employee to come over for a physical examination. She did not even have time to greet the other colleagues in the department before she was dragged into work. For the whole morning, Su Qingseng was so busy that she did not even have time to drink water. It was not until noon that there were fewer people in the hospital. Sun Huiya finally had time to introduce the colleagues in the department to Su Qingseng. Su Qingseng had already met one of her students, Zheng Qinyu, the male doctor from before. It was also at this time that Su Qingseng realized that although Zheng Qinyu was a man, he was quite skilled in business. He was one of Sun Huiya's favorite students. The deputy director of the department was Shin Lingyun, who was a little younger than Sun Huiya and looked to be in her 40s. There was another deputy director called Yang Lu, who looked to be in her 30s. In addition to these 2 deputy directors, there were 3 other doctors: Ling Fei, Li Ting, and Zhang Qi. A few other colleagues had gone to the countryside and were not here. The head nurse of the obstetrics and gynecology department was Li Meilin. A few nurses also came over to greet Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang was still recognizing people and familiarizing herself with them when someone knocked on the door of the office on the other side. A group of people's voices attracted their attention. Su Qingsang stared at the person who came. Wu Jinyao. Why was he here? Sir, this is the obstetrics and gynecology department. If you want to see a patient, you have to go to the inpatient department. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.